Hello everyone, dear students, faculty and staff. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for coming to the high class student debates. Today, me and my colleague Osman will be your hosts during the event, where several relevant economic and political issues will be debated. I hope that in front of you is the agenda, which shows the topics of the 6 debates that will be debated in this event. Without further ado, I would like Osman to introduce you to the first debate. Hope you will enjoy it and have a great time.
Thank you, Erza. So, the first debate is euroization. Official euroization involves a country abandoning an independent currency. In countries that went through euroization, only a foreign currency is a legal tender. Countries that normally adopt such a radical change in monetary policy are often encountering unstable economies, high level of inflation, and very low competitive currency. Its effects on the political and economical level have split the specialists in advocates and opponents of such policy, making it a continuous subject in international monetary and political studies. Now, in the show The Economic Buzz, Katrina Zeka as a moderator and Diona Hoja as a co-moderator, along with debate teams, will tackle the key issues on reasons behind the euroization and implication for monetary policy. Issues like trade-offs between sovereignty, loss of independent monetary policy, possibilities of currency attacks and potential alternatives to euroization, many other questions will be addressed. Without further ado, I would like to invite moderators of the Economic Buzz to start the debate. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming to our show Economic Buzz. Today we will have a debate on euroization, and I would like you to welcome our very special guests, which we have in our panel today. I'll start with Ms. Cerin Seydio. She is a policy analyst in Kosovo's Ministry of Finance. Ms. Yamuna Karavidai, macro analyst at the European Central Bank. Mr. Rurem Shuko, macroeconomics professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Mr. Lard Alishka, economist at the Research Center of Economic Development and International Finance. First of all, before we continue with our debate today, I would like you to see a short video that we have presented to you to be more familiar to our topic and to know more the notions and everything else.
Euroization is legally defined as the adoption of euro as a legal tender and official currency by the authorities of country outside the eurozone. In Kosovo, it was adopted in 2002 and it replaced Deutschmarks. Banking and Payments Authority in Kosovo was entrusted to take the lead. Transition to euro had to be carried out in cooperation with European Central Bank.
So this is what euroization mainly means. However, for more, we will have our debaters today that will present us the main topics pro and against euroization. And I would like to start with Ms. Saidio. Can you explain to us more, when a country adopts euro as the official currency, will the credibility and fiscal discipline enhance to that country?
Yes, euroization will enhance credibility and fiscal discipline, and this is quite important since in a country when we don't have credibility in the domestic authorities, it will result in large economic distortion. If a central bank of one country cannot execute its own policy, for example, lowering the inflation rate, then euroization appears to be the best solution in order to achieve and keep this permanent low inflation rate. Since the risk of depreciation of the domestic currency is eliminated, which is a contributor factor to the acceleration of inflation. And when we have lower inflation rate, we will foster the macroeconomic stability. When we adopt euro as our official currency, we will adopt also the monetary policy of the issuing countries, which enjoys a high level of credibility. So inflation rate, but also interest rates in euroized economies are assumed to converge towards the level of the issuing countries. Given that there is a higher incentive to cheat and to diverge from economic targets when a currency has its domestic currency, adopting a foreign currency instead of the domestic currency will eliminate such a phenomenon. If authorities experience credibility risk, then euroization is supposed to be beneficial in terms of fiscal discipline. Therefore, the possibility to print money, for example, in order to monetize the debt, will not exist. However, euroization does not eliminate the undisciplined financial performance. Instead of that, euroization only will transfer this cost into the future. Even more, as a supposedly irreversible institutional change, euroization signals a permanent a commitment to permanent low inflation, fiscal stability, and transparency. That would be of a particular value to countries that previously have not experienced this crisis or financial stability. And there are cases that prove that. For example, in Europe, there were many states that adopt euro as the official currency, such as Andorra, Monaco, San Marino, etc. And data have shown that the income levels of these countries have increased, and sometimes as high as or higher or even higher to the issuing country.
Ms. Saidio, can you cut it shorter than we can discuss about this? But I just want to relate to your point. You said that the interest rates are reduced and also the inflation rate.
Yeah.
And I want to ask Ms. Karavidai, how does euroization help market integration in this aspect? Does it affect?
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the question. A potential benefit of the euroization is also the market integration that it provides with the euro or dollar zone. This comes due to several reasons. One of them is because it reduces the transaction cost. And when I say it reduces the transaction cost, this means because it already adopts a currency that is secured and well established, which means that it is easier for this currency to be converted to others and to make trades easier with other countries. This enhances and results in increasing the trade level with the other countries, especially with the currency union members. And Despite this increase in the trade between the currency member states, the euroization has also improved the financial integration of the countries. This has come because of the monetary change that euroization provides. It provides financial incentives for the financial intermediaries to improve the financial integration and investments in these countries. However, I would like to add one more point on this, because when we see that the trade between these currency member countries is increased, I do not mean that there is diversion of trades and they do not trade with non-member countries. But the trade between members countries increase as a ratio to the total foreign trade to GDP. Therefore, it is not a diversion of trade, but therefore it's an increase in total foreign trade. And I have cases to show about this. For example, in Zimbabwe, which the dollarization has occurred, and the trade level has increased, however, and it has resulted in increased economic growth as well. Because the authorities, for example, when they had their own currency, in cases of hyperinflation, it was very difficult for them to convert their money because the other countries did not accept it. After the dollarization, it was easier for them and it was less costly to make trade with the other countries, and also their goods become more competitive, and now they can manage to have their inflation under control as well. This can be applicable in other cases such as Ecuador, and in Kosovo as well. It has proved to increase the trade after the 2002, after Kosovo adopted the euro, and it has increased the trade level with the euro with the member countries.
I would like to reply to these facts mentioned.
Can you wait for that, because I want to touch some basic points first and then you can discuss with each other. Thank you for your answer. However, I want to touch also one aspect, that is seigniorage. There are revenues that the country gets from having their own monetary policy. Mr. Shuko, can you tell us how does the loss of seigniorage affect the country's economy? Also, how much does seigniorage generally cover a government budget, since we lose that?
Yes, thank you. So the greater the degree of currency substitution for a country, then the greater the sanctions or constraints are imposed to that economy. And then the government's ability to manage the macroeconomic conditions is much harder. Likewise, it is true that by adopting euro, government forfeits a potentially powerful tool, the capacity to print money, which is known as seigniorage. The concept of seigniorage is quite easy. The revenue you get, but the revenue the government of the state gets by printing money. It can be a highly volatile, highly dangerous tool if used differently, because it triggers hyperinflation quite easily. But if it's used right, then it is a very powerful and a really helpful tool. It serves as an emergency source of revenues, because such as wars or disasters, as in the case of Kosovo. We cannot leave the unexpected happenings to result in a lifelong recession or economic downturn for a country. To the even case mentioned that the government can live by this means when it can live by no other. So seigniorage is really helpful in cases of emergency, in cases of disasters and wars. To the second question was that
how much does
seigniorage generally cover government's budget. Then this question had different answers or solutions, but from the statistic that we know, from the EU, revenues possibly occurring from seigniorage is estimated to be 6 to 7% of EU budget, which is around 10 billion euros.
Just 1 minute. Mr. Agishka, I want to also further discuss about this loss of independence. And can you show us more in what way does the loss of independence affect the monetary system of a state?
Yes, of course, but I will just simply, for a short time, reply to the points mentioned from the opposition. I would begin with the credibility and fiscal discipline which would be enhanced with euroization. Euroization is a process which usually is conducted by countries who seek European integration. But the process of European integration alone is a stimulus for structural and institutional reforms. So whether the Euroization would foster this, the credibility, or show effects is not really clear, since alone the process of integration would cause all of this, so the benefits are not clear. I wouldn't see that as an argument. Further, you mentioned that Euroization would foster the creation of a common market, but that's not true, because on unilateral basis adopting the Euroization does not mean that you are part of the European Union or the market of the common market of the European Union. It's basically you just adopt. You still have barriers to trade with those countries of the European Union. The only thing, as you mentioned, is the decrease in transactional cost, which is perhaps very small to consider it a real benefit. You mentioned the case of Zimbabwe, hyperinflation. How would you consider to adopt a foreign currency if you are in the situation of hyperinflation when your money is worth nothing? You need, for the process of Euroization, the capabilities. You need money, real money, purchasing power, to really convert it. If you don't have it in case of hyperinflation, how will you make that happen? Now we can continue with my question. So, losing the independence of your monetary policy basically means that you give up one of the two main mechanisms of influencing your economy. You are not able to control for crisis or fluctuations in the business cycle. You are not able to adjust to asymmetric shocks, which happen quite often and are not deleted or not removed by adopting the euro. For instance, the exchange rate would be such a mechanism that is used to absorb asymmetric shocks, but if you adopt euro as a domestic currency, you will not have the possibility of influencing the exchange rate. Since usually the anchor country does not care about the situation in every other country, and adopting the Euroization on a unilateral basis is even considered by the European Union and by the European Central Bank as not a preferable measure of doing, since they do not account for your situation. If you're not able to use exchange rates as an absorption mechanism for asymmetric changes, and you do not have any other mechanism, this will cause the economy of the country to run into recession, decrease output, and increase unemployment. So basically, it becomes even worse. Euroization may increase, as such, the possibility of crisis. You will perhaps reduce the monetary crisis, however, it cannot prevent recession, bank failures, and sudden outflow of capital due to investors leaving the country. Given the important role of monetary policy in accommodating such shocks and stabilizing business cycles, Euroization can lead to even higher macroeconomic instability, as you before mentioned, that it would actually advance or stabilize the macroeconomic level in the economy. And last, the costs from losing the independent monetary policy are even worse if the country who adopts the euro as a domestic currency will be even greater if the connection between those countries is far or not really strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radishka. Ms. Karavidai, now you can reply.
Okay,
to this point.
starting from Mr. Shugu's point about the seigniorage, I don't know why you keep calling this seigniorage revenue as a cost of dollarization, because I think that when countries consider dollarization as an option for their...
It's almost the same thing.
It's, yes,
but we'll stick to euroization.
Yes, they, when they consider this option, in order to lower their interest, their inflation rate, this is a decision when they compare the benefits that comes with the seigniorage revenue and the benefits with that the lower inflation will bring. So they outweigh the benefits of the cost of this decision, and they have found solution to these seigniorage revenues, which can include one of them can be an agreement with the U.S. to cover maybe part of the cost of the seigniorage revenue that the country is losing. In the other side, with dollarization, you are helping a country to create an environment of stability and growth, which means that it will be more attractive for investments and to prevent future financial instabilities. In this case, by creating this environment, by having more growth, investments, and your tax revenues will increase, and at the same time you will find sources to manage or to compensate for those seigniorage revenues. And it can be through other forms as well. However, you have always to maintain that even for dollarization, you have to have an established fiscal system, because you cannot just compensate for these revenues by making other implications in the market. For the other points that Mr. Lalichka mentioned about the loss of independence, we are talking, I have to keep mentioning that we are talking about countries that have mostly lose their control on the monetary policy. So how can you control? And for the Zimbabwe, especially, the periods of hyperinflation have been stabilized by the dollarization, and now they have a relatively low inflation rate. They are in like the other countries. For Kosovo as well, in the Yugoslavia, Kosovo has had a very high inflation rate, and after the eurozation, now the Kosovo has even the inflation rate which are below what the EU has stated. In addition, most of the countries that have adopted dollarization are countries that before or historically have been through periods of monetary instabilities. So eurozation has been a solution to them, because they are not therefore able to have a complete control on their monetary policy, and therefore having their own domestic currency will issue them to print more money in times of a crisis, which will lead to the depreciation of their exchange rates, and therefore in order to reduce the interest rates, they will take other measures which will increase the inflation and will have other implications in the market of the country. Therefore, dollarization has been a solution for these places. You cannot consider it as a consequence of dollarization. And now I think I have to continue about the currency risk.
First of all, do you want any
Yes, of
reply?
course.
Okay. Who wants to start first?
You want to start?
Okay, Mr.
I really do appreciate your knowledge about dollarization, but I would like to stay within the boundaries of euroization. You stated the examples of Andorra and the examples of Ecuador,
My
right?
colleagues stated
Yeah,
that.
yeah, your colleagues. Your example was about which country? Precisely which country? Zimbabwe. Okay. I present you the most recent case of Greece, which I think that if the country had its own currency, there was hope of revitalizing the economy in the country. But because there was loss of seigniorage, which was my which I touched upon this concept, not only the country cannot print money in order to save itself from these unexpected contingencies, as I mentioned before, wars or disasters. The European Central Bank is even putting sanctions to the country, such as freezing the emergency liquidity assistance, which is worse. So this was my point.
Mr. Lalichka?
May I add?
To add to
Wait a
that,
second.
you, as my colleague mentioned, you referred often to dollarization, and you mentioned for seigniorage that you can make agreements with the Fed. But since we are talking about the European Union, the euroization,
Okay.
under the EC treaty, seigniorage is revenue shared by the members of the European Monetary Fund. And if adopting the euro on unilateral basis, you are not part of that, so you cannot get any share of the revenue from seigniorage. So, and it is stated, so there is no agreement, possibly, as in the case of Kosovo.
So you
for
can
instance.
consider my second option.
Then to refer to your other points that you mentioned again, countries would already have lost their control of our monetary policy. I wouldn't argue for that, because that's perhaps in certain cases in Latin America or wherever, what political influence or other factors have more influence than the economic situation. As you mentioned, Kosovo and Yugoslavia. The hyperinflation in Yugoslavia wasn't caused by economic factors, it was rather political. And before adopting the euro, Kosovo had the Deutschmark, which was basically the predecessor of the euro. So we could argue that before eurozation, Kosovo had a weak currency, or one which was facing hyperinflation. Thank you.
Yes.
So Mr. Rajishkai said that integration process in eurization is costly, but the advantages that you get from eurization outweighs this cost. Since the countries like Kosovo, they don't have credibility in the domestic authorities, so the inflation rate will be higher, which will worsen the situation of the country like Kosovo. Also for Senior Raj, that Turin mentioned, I don't think that there is quite large revenues, because countries that don't have euro as a currency, they have huge costs, since they have to adjust the exchange rate and while trying to maintain the central bank independent to the exchange rate target. Also, for monetary independence that Mr. Alichkai said, in Eurozone we have microstate countries that have adopted euro as their official currency. So they are hugely dependent on the trade, and when they, for example, if they want to maintain the central bank independent, and if they set domestic interest rate according to the needs of the domestic economy, then foreign trade because of the foreign exchange. Because of the change in the foreign exchange rate will be unfavorable, so the foreign trade balance will be destroyed.
But in this case, we're talking about the independence of the country. So
yes,
you're saying that the country would be dependent from trade. So the loss
so
of
they
independence.
they don't have a possibility to play with monetary policy. Since
Yes. But you're saying that wouldn't be as an important issue because that country is dependent from trade.
Yeah, so they cannot play much with
I would like just to ask you one question. Do you think Kosovo is a good case of euroization in sense of trade? As you think it fosters trade. Is Kosovo a good example?
Yes.
Yes. So how would you explain the trade deficit which is continuing every year?
But we have seen that Kosovo exports, since it took euro as official currency, has been increasing.
And Gert, you can look at the statistics of the Kosovo.
Yeah.
You can see that after 2002, yes, I'm sure that you have. After 2002, Kosovo has been experiencing economic growth, and the timing consistency problem has been reduced. The inflation has been reduced. In addition, you have to consider that for economic growth in Kosovo, euroization is not the solution. I'm not saying that the euroization will solve all the problems of the country. We have to consider that we have to have reliable institutions who do that, develop financial and banking sector, and even in the interviews we have had with the governor of the Central Bank of Kosovo, he has stated that the sustainability and the banking system has been improved in Kosovo.
I just want to stay at this point, or do you want to reply?
I would just take Albania, for example, since you mentioned inflation. Albania was able to keep inflation very low, even after the economic crisis in 2008, without having to adopt euro.
I'm not saying
And
that
it
every
even
country should
keeps
adopt
it at the perfect rate of near and below 2%.
I would like here to mention that euroization is not for all countries. You have to. I know that you have gone through the preconditions, but you have to consider some cases because the euroization cannot be applied in all of them.
Just a second, I want to ask you something in this point.
Yes.
Since you're saying that euroization might not be the case, the solution for each country, what could be the potential alternatives to euroization? And I want to ask the same question to Mr. Alishka as well. Who wants to start first?
Okay. Before just starting to that, I wanna mention one of the very important benefits that countries from Eurozation have gained. Before that, Eurozation has seen as a reaction to most of the currency crisis that countries have been facing, and these currency crises have been devastating, especially for the emerging economies, and have caused many substantial losses to them. Here can be, despite the possible emergence of widened risk premia, it has considered they have had the consequences of fall in GDP, such as in Mexico when the GDP fell by 7% or a recession, and this has been also seen in the countries with the currency boards. Therefore, the dollarization or euroization has been seen as a solution for reduction of this currency risk, because despite all, it reduces the interest rates and reduces the risk premium. This, at the same time, enhances the investment, the economic growth, it lowers the fiscal cost of domestic debt, and it fosters the international capital movements. Therefore, in circumstances of high instability and inconsistency with domestic currencies, their peers will face liquidity constraints and the long-term loans will not be offered to them. And in cases of exchange rate attacks, the government will see as a solution to increase the short-term interest rates, and therefore this will lead to higher debt servicing expenses. And the countries that have their domestic currencies will mostly face these problems. In Kosovo, this domestic risk problem has been eliminated after euroization, and it has gained greater access in local and international markets. Therefore, euroization or dollarization is seen as a solution for reduction of this currency risk, and this has helping these countries in fostering integration in the trade levels.
Mr. Alishka, can you answer the same question?
Yes, I would think the best possibility or alternative to euroization is not to euroize at all. However, the nearest one is the currency board, as my colleague mentioned. It is quite similar to the dollarization as a process in such, because you fix your exchange rate to another stronger currency. However, you do not adopt this on a permanent basis. This is reversible. Like the process of euroization is hardly irreversible. You cannot go back anymore. You lose total flexibility. And with the currency board, at least you have the option to still change.
Yeah, but
Furthermore, which is mostly, other economists think of euroization as the same thing as creating a monetary union, which would be perhaps the best alternative, but it's not the same. Monetary unions are the example of the European Union, when many countries come together and decide on a single currency representative of them all, controlled by a single central bank. However, adopting the euro as a currency on a unilateral basis it's not the same as creating. And since you creating a monetary union, and since you mentioned the interest rates, and you correctly mentioned that it is a fixed short-term, a change to short-term interest rate, which will be determined by the monetary policy of the European Union, not yours. This means that in case of an imbalance between aggregate demand and aggregate supply in an economy, what would you do? You have to use a mechanism to outweigh this balance. If this is not possible, you will risk both default risk and the risk premium will increase. You mentioned that they will decrease, but actually they can increase. Yes. So you will, as a country, you will be not able to borrow funds without an increased cost. The positive effect of euroization in form of the reduction in exchange rate risk is wiped out by increase in default risk. And default risk is the risk of being not able to pay back loans if you
Since we don't have, I'm sorry, but since we don't have much time, I would like just to mention, elaborate one more point that Yard actually touched upon somehow, and you mentioned also during this debate about the case of Kosovo. We have interviewed one of our alumni that has explained more how has euroization, in her opinion, affected Kosovo, and then I would like your opinion after you see the interview.
What are related to the loss of an independent monetary policy, the loss of the ladder of last resort function, and the loss of the seigniorage revenues. The loss of independent monetary policy, we know that the monetary policy to a country is very important because it can achieve various short economic goals such as inflation, balance of payments, employment rate, and others. The loss of independent monetary policy, however, has not been a very major cost for Kosovo, considering the fact that we're a country in transition and that we have been in a hyperinflation during the Serbian regime.
So I want to actually ask Mr. Shuko, in relation to this, you talked about these parameters that are lost due to euroization, and do you think that in some cases actually these parameters are not as important to the state, such as the case of Kosovo, as there are benefits from euroization? And also, can this be seen as a preferable process for that state?
When you adopt a foreign currency, you are dealing with the current problems that are happening in your economy, in the economy of your country, and but the consequences come after you, during the way that you hold that currency in your country. With the case of Kosovo, Kosovo is, as we know, an unlucky state. We went through war in 1999 and global financial crisis during the 2007-2008 years, and we had GDP decrease from 5.4 to 4.4. We lost the ability, the tool of lender of last resorts, so we weren't capable of discounting freely in times of financial crisis, such was the 2008. Also, you mentioned the idea of liquidity constraints. I have the argument that domestic banks are exposed to potential liquidity risks when they don't have their own currency, or when they lose the ability to, when they lose the tool of lender of last resort. The banks start to sell their assets, sell their capital to turn assets into cash, because the cash is needed in order how to say, we can say that, for example, the economy of Kosovo could inject money in the country from the central bank. But when you don't have the ability of seigniorage or the lender of last resort, you lose the
Mr. Shuko, can you cut it short? Sorry.
Yeah. You lose this ability and you have these liquidity risks. In the case of Kosovo, the lender of the last resort is quite difficult to substitute because with an account of deficit with 16% of GDP, it has neither excess funds nor a huge amount of foreign reserves to deal with this problem.
Thank you very much. As much as I wish that this debate would be longer, and there is so much to be talked about this issue, however, we have limited minutes in our disposal, so I would like to use these additional minutes to ask from the public, do you have any question for our debaters? Yes?
Hello, my name is Juana Tavire, and I have a question for Mr. Alishkai. As you were against dollarization, would you still keep your currency even if the economy is going through an economic crisis and you know that by using another currency you could save your economy?
Thank you for the question. First of all, your question, the statement is quite hypothetical and quite undefined, because it's unclear what kind of economic crisis. The economic crisis really would have an effect on the decision. However, I still don't see euroization as a mean of solving an issue. First of all, it's not an immediate process which you can start from today or tomorrow. It's a process which would take time, and in times of crisis, that would be for sure too late. Second of all, euroization, yes. Let's take the example of the economic crisis of 2008. It was a recession. In recession, what we see is economies would foster or pursue expansion in monetary policy, which would often require an increase in money supply. However, if you lose that by euroization, your ability, as my colleague mentioned, to be the last lender resort or to influence your money supply, then you cannot do that. And I'm pretty sure that member states or other states could cope perhaps with the crisis much better than you, would not consider you as an issue, and those would not increase their money supply just in order to help you. Despite of that,
can you answer shortly?
Yes.
Because we don't have much time.
shortly, yes, according to the World Bank, so to relate to the 2008
Sentences most.
Yes. According to the World Bank, the central banks of the world have injected 80 trillion US dollars in the world economy after the 2008 crisis, pursuing expansionary monetary policy to foster consumption, growth, and to reduce unemployment, and so far. If they wouldn't do that, then it would cause much severe consequences. And in the sense of having the crisis just in Kosovo, Kosovo wouldn't be able to respond to such a crisis. So my issue is that euroization is not the solution for Kosovo in either way.
Thank you, Mr. Alishka. Any other question? Yes.
Hi, I'm Elina. I have a question for Mrs. Karavidai. Do you consider that euroization will affect the central bank's ability to act as the lender of the last resort?
Okay, I cannot hear. I didn't hear it.
Do you
Can you repeat it?
Do you consider that euroization will affect the central bank role as the lender of the last resort?
Okay, thank you for the question. I feel that this issue has been overstated because we know that the central bank role to act as a lender of last resort appears in a situation when the banks have liquidity constraint and they want to withdraw their money. However, there have been potential solutions to these problems, and literature has shown that this problem can be solved in numerous ways. For example, in industrialized countries, the role of as lender of last resort is solved by borrowing instead of printing money. In the other cases, it can be maintained on a deposit insurance fund, or it can be a contingent credit line, which will establish a special fund that will provide the function of the international lender of last resort and help these economies that are having these problems, and this will be beneficial in cases of dollarization. I think that the US will be cooperating in this one because it will be beneficial to have the stability in the dollar national countries. And in addition, it has proved that it has proved that the function of a lender of last resort in emerging economies has led to potential financial and currency crisis. Because banks, knowing that they will have support in their back, they usually take the risk that they wouldn't have undertaken otherwise, and this would lead to the moral hazard problem. And therefore, having not this opportunity to them makes them be more aware about the consequences of their actions, and it has resulted to be successful. For example, in Kosovo also, after 2006, there has been not been any problems with the bank regarding this problem.
Okay, so...
Can I just add to that just
no, I'm
one
sorry.
sentence?
One sentence.
Okay, just one sentence. You mentioned, we had the example of Greece. The example, you mentioned the point of borrowing. We had the example of Greece.
I'm talking about industrialized nations.
This is the last sentence. Though.
Okay, the last sentence. That how borrowing and borrowing and borrowing can help a country to revitalize the economy.
Okay, this has been an example.
Sorry, Ms. Karavida, but we really don't have any much time. So I'm sorry to cut it at this point because, as I said, there's so much to talk about this issue. However, this was our discussion. Thank you for your attention, and a special thank you for our debaters who gave us their expertise. Until next time, stay with us.
So I would like to thank the Economic Buzz team for debating on euroization and by explaining the pros and cons. Now I would like to give the floor to the battleground team, which will debate on the impact of labor unions, the pros and cons, with Yorick Majuni as moderator and Vanessa Stavilic as co-moderator, where they will also explain the impacts of unions in Kosovo, also the potential negative output costs related to strikes, possibilities of avoiding strikes, the problems with unemployment rate related to union activity, and also the relevance of unions in the public sector, including administrations, health, education, and also police and firefighters.
Hello everyone, welcome to the battleground, the best debate here at AK. First of all, let us introduce the teams. In my right is Julian Kuci, which is an expert on labor economics. Welcome, Julian. On my right is Hana Tahiri, civil society representative. Thank you for joining us today. On my left it is Enis Debrani, which is Enis Friedman, which is a Nobel Prize winner. Thank you for joining us today. And on my other left is Arjan Batsoli, which is a professor at Harvard University and supporter of individual liberty. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to present about unions. We're going to debate about unions, and let me start to give a small introduction about unions. Unions are a group of people inside the company which take wages, so they are workers. And as a group of people, they try to get their rights. As we know, everyone has rights, but they try to get their rights, increase wages, decrease working hours, increase extra time wages, and so on. First of all, let me start with Julia. Julia, what do you think? What are unions in your...
Thank you for the question. Well, as we know, in the 18th century, during the industrialization period in Great Britain, there was a situation where workers lived inside their workplace, inside the factory with the whole family, a situation where child labor was a norm, and a situation where 16 hours a day work time was the norm as well. So union workers, labor unions, emerged as a need to respect basic human rights, and really it has been nearly 100 years of a success story, because unions help or sort of paved the way to hundreds of millions of people to the middle class, and we know that there cannot be a healthy democracy without a healthy middle class, a healthy working class.
Thank you, Julia.
Okay, thank you.
Julia mentioned that unions are late because of many bad things that occur to workers, usually in the past time, but I have a question to the other party. Does this mean that because unions exist, but everything is already fixed by the law, does it mean that unions are useless?
To begin with, I will talk about the law. So the law says that members of the unions are prevented to increase their to receive individual raises, but also it prevents other non-members of the unions to have a voice in their job. So this way we can say that unions are mostly beneficiary for their members only by imposing a substantial cost to other members of the society or other workers as well. So these days we can say that unions can be seen mostly as a problem rather than a solution, because when the economy performs well, everyone benefits from this progress of the economy, so this way we don't need unions. On the other hand, in bad and recession times, unions will have also many problems or disputes in protecting the interest of their members when it comes to layoffs, wage reductions, and other tough decisions. Plus, the membership fee in these hard times will be really costly. And many turn to the government when it comes to protect their interest, for example, pension, education, health, and other discriminations. It is worth mentioning that participation of females in labor market recently increased, and historically we know that they were less likely to participate in labor unions. But to counter-argue this, we have to mention also the structure of the unions. We know that we have industrial unions, we have craft unions, decentralized unions, and centralized unions. But I'll mostly relate to industrial unions. As we know, there are unions where all the workers are together regardless of their skills, so they benefit in terms of health and education. But considering all these, we have to know also that different regions perceive unions they have different perceptions in terms of unions. For example, US is mostly focused on increasing wages and fringe benefits, whereas Europe, for example, tries to reduce hours worked and also inequalities between workers. So in overall, we have...
Mr. Arjan. It was a fairly long answer. I have a question for Ms. Tahir. What are the main benefits of a union, and can unions really bring higher wages?
Okay, thank you for the question. And thank you for calling us on this debate today. And yes, as a big proponent of labor unions, we think that the biggest advantage that labor unions bring is higher wages. So let me first begin with an example. It was in 1912 where Massachusetts textile mills, and they decided to cut wages of workers by $0.32, which now it may not seem a lot because the wages have increased, but at that time, compared with the $8 weekly that they were earning, it was quite a lot. So what workers did, they decided to protest. 30,000 of them decided to leave the job, while the others started protesting for 9 months in a row, until they agreed with the workers on a settlement with 50% increase in wages. And also, they increased the overtime compensation and also promised to not retaliate against strike. So, what do labor unions do? First of all, they decide, they make agreements to increase the labor demand. First of all, they increase the minimum wage for workers. Second of all, they increase the marginal productivity. How they do that is that by fees that you mentioned, they organize trainings for the employees within the union so that they can become more productive in their jobs. The third is that they support restrictions by trade tariffs and barriers. So when products that are imported from abroad have tariffs and quotas, then of course the demand for the products that are produced domestically will increase. When this increases, so will the demand for domestic products. And the last is that they lobby for immigration restrictions. So by limiting the supply of labor that comes from abroad, they can increase the demand for labor within the country and thus increasing the wages. Moreover, just one more statistics, please. We saw, according to some researches that have been done, in 2006, the wage of non-union laborers, yes, I said it correct, union laborers was $1,004, while for non-union workers it was $8,802, meaning that it was 20% higher. So yes, labor unions achieved to increase the wage of labor workers.
Can I shortly add to that, just two very short points? And the first is that it was mentioned here that non-unionized workers suffer from the fact that they're unions, but that is not true. Statistics all over the world show that the unions benefit all, be those unionized or non-unionized workers. As my colleague mentioned here, when unions ask for an increase in wages, they usually target minimum wages. And so when a minimum wage is increased, then this would profit anyone, be those unionized or non-unionized workers, and also the idea that they increase consumption by the increase of the demand for labor.
Thank you.
One sentence, if I can say that.
Yes, you can reply.
Maybe that is the reason why in US the density rate of unions declined from 1960 when it was 30.9 to 10.8 in 2013.
No, that's not only the case because of the type of industry has changed. People are now more focused in technology and computers rather than those industries where people used to be unionized. And that it's
Can I
not.
just add something? Since you're saying the times have changed and it's a period of urbanization and freelancing, do unions actually? Do we need unions anymore?
We absolutely do. First and foremost, because I don't know if you have noticed that we are having an increase in sexual harassment and sexual assaults in the workplace. And I'd like to bring here the case of, I don't know if you remember the predecessor of the lady who is now currently leading the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, Mr. Dominic Strauss-Kahn. Even though Dr. Baskin there is laughing. Even though his charges were dropped because he paid some $1.2 million, the worker, the lady that sued him, could only sue him because she was part of a union worker, very solid union workers that exist for the hotel workers in New York State particularly. So unions are essential in preventing or in guaranteeing that sexual harassment, protection from sexual harassment and sexual assault in the workplace.
If I just say one more thing,
I have one question for the other team now. As the other team mentioned, there are many benefits as wages, low working hours and so on from unions, but what do you think about the seniority problem and the fees that you have to pay in order to be a part of a union, Mr. Librani?
I'll try to make my answer short and concise. Yes, they actually do. Some unions actually put fees for membership, which is actually pretty ironic since they're trying to help the laborers. And that can stagnate workers from joining the unions in the first place. Even though some unions do not exclude the non-members from some benefits, those workers do not have the right to propose something, present their issues. Considering that the most successful unions are the ones that had the highest paid workers, they are the most powerful workers because they are in a high paid position, and that high paid position helps them to have a more powerful decision making, and also that powerful decision making helps them have a higher wage. So the lower end workers would enjoy only a fraction of these benefits, and their working standards would only improve by a bit or probably be hurt even more. So let's say the high-paid union workers demand a 10% increase in their wages. And let's say that the union and the company agree to some extent to raise the wages.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more second.
Continue.
However, it is the low-paid workers who are probably not even in the union that would get a decrease in their wage. At the end, everyone seeks their personal interest in the union, and not everyone would have their wishes fulfilled. So every time in this situation, there's a group that will get discriminated and hurt from these decisions. Thank you.
No, that can't be true because in a free and open economy, I don't know if you ever heard about the threat effect. The idea that when unionized workers ask for higher wages, the non-unionized workers will also get increases and benefits financially, because the employer will of course increase their wages as much as he increases the wages or she increases the wages of the workers, just because for the fact that the non-unionized to prevent the non-unionized workers to join a union, because then they would sort of be guaranteed have sort of the right for a greater paid leave and for greater fringe benefits. So that's called the threat effect. And
Julian, I think you mentioned about the wages
something?
problem, but what about the fees that you have to pay in order to get?
Yes, I would like to thank you for that, for reminding me of that. How is it possible that you can attack $200 from $200 to several $100s is a fee for joining a union, while the benefits for it are from
Obstruction.
Yeah, but I think it's broke. I think it's broke. Okay, thanks. So, on the idea of the fee is that a worker gets to pay from $200 to several $100s, and maximum will go to $1,000 a year to join a union. And it is only fair that for an independent organization which asks their rightful, their rights, which are guaranteed, by the way, from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, Articles 23 and 24. So that is a human right, and by asking this minimum fee in order to, survive and to exist as an organization, they're preventing. It's okay. I think there is a technical problem. But anyways, they're preventing unions from being financed by companies and by corporates. I don't know if you're aware that there are unions out there which are financed by very rich people, and of course that is not a union. That kind of organization would work towards the interests of those persons who finance it. So in order to keep and maintain independence, it is essential for unions to have their own, their own financial independence.
Thank you, Ilya. Do you have anything?
Yes. Both of you mentioned that unions increased wages, but we have to consider that supply and labor demand is a fundamental law. So we know that an increase in labor supply faster than the demand will also depress wages. And we also have to consider that labor is part of the production cost. So increasing wages will also increase the prices when it comes to goods and services offered by a certain industry or company. So this would be, this way we have to consider that increasing wages will harm other non-members of the unions, even though you mentioned that both of them benefit, but that's not true as I'm concerned.
Yeah, why do you consider that increasing wages is necessarily bad? For example, you are increasing the wages, then that potentially cannot harm the businesses, because if you increase the wages, then those people will have more purchasing power. When they have more purchasing power, they will spend more. When they spend more, businesses will have more money to invest, therefore hiring more people.
Can I just
except for this point of increasing consumption, the idea of increasing wages is not an alien idea, since when we talk about an increase in output and we talk about increase in productivity, who do you think that increase that productivity? Of course, productivity is not increased by investment only. Investments can go bad. Productivity is increased by working class, by the working people, and so increasing their wages is only a fair share of the productivity that they helped increase.
Thank you, Ilya. Ms. Friedman, our Nobel Prize winner, you had something to say.
Yeah, as for the wage increase, that does not harm necessarily the businesses, but it harms the laborers, because what businesses do is they lower the wages of the lower rank workers so that the higher paid workers would have an increase in their wages, or they would lay off some workers so their profit equilibrium would be in place, and so that the wages of some other people would be increased. Thank you.
What what he just said is that you're giving them better wages, but you're sacrificing jobs. Is this true, or do unions ensure job security?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, how do labor unions increase demand? it was one of my points that I mentioned that they restrict the immigration. So when they restrict the immigration, they can also increase the supply of potential domestic low-skilled labor. So when the wage of these domestic low-skilled labor increases, the gap between high-skilled labor and low-skilled labor will be shrink. So not necessarily it decreases the wage of low-skilled labor, increases the wage of high-skilled labor.
Actually, in addition to that, what unions do, they actually help because they affect mostly blue-collar jobs, not white-collar jobs. They affect greatly the disparities that they have. So they're a great tool towards a greater equality in the working place and in the job place.
Thank you, Mr. Ilyan. Now I have a question for the other team. Can you give us a real-life example where unions failed? But just keep it short, we are running out of time.
So without mentioning the history of America and how the density rate changed from time to time, we can take a labor dispute between two companies, one of the United States, which one is the Brotherhood of Electrical Worker and the Communities Workers, which took a strike with a length of tenure for 4 months against the Fairpoint Communication, which is a company in New England, which is trying to recoup itself from the bankruptcy of 2011. After this strike ended, the workers had little to show for their efforts. In fact, workers were forced to make significant concessions in order to gain their jobs back. On the other hand, this Fairpoint announced that they are going to eliminate around 200 jobs. So we can see that unions didn't prevent this elimination of jobs, and this way we don't have job security.
Okay, thank you. Now we're gonna watch a short interview, and then we're gonna come back with a few questions.
Një panisë stabilitsi dhe jemi ka emisioni The Battleground. Këtu të ftuar kemi Florin Bingjiu, do t'ja bëjmë një pyetje. Çfarë mendoni për sindikatat e punëtorëve në Kosovë?
Po, pikë pare mendoj që sindikatat kishin me qenë shumë ma efektive në mbrojtje interesat më shumë të punëtorëve, cilat besoj që nuk janë të përshtatshme. Për arsye se si duket edhe këtu mesin e sindikatave ka një lloj si me tekstu ndikime politike. Besoj që kish me qenë shumë mirë po marrë me të drejtat e punëtorëve e jo po marrë me çështje politike apo me
Tash vazhdojmë me personin tjetër, Disa Jasici. What do you think about unions in Kosovo?
I think that unions are very beneficial in terms of providing another force that represents a group of people and their interests. But in Kosovo, they're not quite developed right now.
Thank you very much.
As we can see, the main concern of people is society, so I have a question for Mr. Julian. Do unions have any social impact?
They absolutely have a social impact. Actually, the very sort of emergence of unions was because of social issues that they were having. Firstly, I'd like to address something that was, that is widely discussed from the opposition part, and that is the idea that unions can also annihilate the firm. They can eliminate the financial power of the firm because they ask an increase in wages and so on and so forth. Well, that is a declaration which has nothing to do with rationality, and it assumes that unions are irrational organizations. The very existence of unions depends upon the existence of the firm, and so they're not a stupid organization which seeks the annihilation of the firm and thus their own annihilation. And as for the greatest social impact that the union have is a greater equity in society. Since in the last decade in the United States there has been a 16% increase in productivity and somewhat 20% increase in output. And while corporate profits have doubled, the profits of laborers have almost, the wages have almost remained flat nominally, and that is a great injustice that unions help us address.
Okay, we have 3 last questions from me, and then we're going to ask the audience for questions. The other question for the other team is, do strikes present a problem? Because as we know, if unions don't get what they want, they strike. And this is why the company can be made stuck in one place with no workers to work for it, because a mismatch between unions and management. So is this a really big problem of unions?
Actually, it is a big problem when the workers go on a strike because as you can see, usually the highest paid workers are the most successful ones, and those that go on to strikes are the lower paid workers. So that's actually very not beneficial for the workers, because as we know, they are easily replaceable by the company because they do not require that much of high skill.
Thank you. Our last question.
So exactly, unions, as he's accepting that unions actually are part of the most vulnerable workers. So they're essential.
Also, if like he said, that strikes are not
Please cut it
beneficial.
short, because I have another question for you. My question for you
yes,
is...
just let me finish. So he said that strikes are not beneficial for the workers. If they are not beneficial, why do it then?
Because it's a risk taker. They want to increase the wages, but sometimes they can't.
Unions do not only increase wages, unions are there for many other issues, but they're basically the security of law enforcement in the workplace.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to present a middle ground, where although the main reasoning about unions is to do the wage increase, I would suggest a few changes where the wage would not be negotiated due to its negative effects. Current unions actually hurt laborers because they distort the labor market and shrink it, even for those laborers that are not in a union. Let's take an example. For example, a young 18-year-old would like to enter the job market for the first time, and typically those people with that age and that kind of experience usually work with a low wage. Unfortunately, he or she won't be able to work because of the constant demand of unions to increase the minimum wages, and that destroys the entry-level jobs that would otherwise be available for someone that age with those particular skills. So instead, the unions would fight only for their labor rights and their work conditions. However, I would not suggest for unions to take any monopolistic control.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The last question from Ms. Tahiri. What is the correlation between unions and job fairness?
Yes, we believe it as proponents. We believe that job fairness, that labor unions provide a lot of job fairness. I will mention some reasons real quickly because we don't have time. The first would be that unions have, if there weren't unions, we wouldn't have safe working conditions today, meaning that before people were subject to environments where they could be hurt or killed and nobody cared. So with labor unions, they pushed these legislations that now people have safer working conditions. The second would be the sick leave. Before unions, people could get sick, and we are human beings, so of course we get sick, and they couldn't get any day off. Also for women, after they gave birth, if they didn't go to work, they lost their jobs. So with labor unions, this has been
Better off. And also because today it seems very, just a second, this is very important. Unions gave us weekends, as we know them today.
I will mention it today. No, today.
Weekends, as you know it today,
you will have your closing statement.
This is the other reason that they give workers 8-hour work days. Before labor unions, people used to work 12, 14 to 18 hours a day, or even 100 hours a week. So that is too much. And You can imagine what that can cause to physical and mental condition to people. So thanks to them, now we have weekends, we have breaks in our work.
Thank you very much, but that is already fixed by the law, so if it is fixed by the law, should unions exist today also?
Exactly, but you are taking it for granted because you think that it is, you were born within labor. You don't live in a labor society, within a labor union society.
Thank you. You will have your closing statement. Let's take the questions from the public. You will close your statement. No, thank you. We're running out of time. Anyone from the public has any questions? Vesa?
Okay, so my question is about, do unions restrict the flexibility of a firm if it's reacting to economic downturns?
No, they don't, in that unions mainly work in a counter-cyclical way. They counter the business fluctuations because when it comes to, they sort of restrict the unemployment from going even higher in times of recession. And when it comes to expansion, when there is time of expansion in the economy, when the GDP goes up and all of that, unions work towards maintaining a stable payroll and a stable wage. So they're believed to work counter-cyclically.
Any other question from the public? Gary?
So I have a question for Hana. If you were running a company, would you want to have unionized employees?
Yes, of course. That would be to three, I would shrink it to three main reasons. First of all would be that we would have simplified negotiations. If we have a lot of people, if I was the boss of a company, if I would have a lot of people coming to me with their demands, of course as the boss I don't have time. So if they have a representative to represent them, it would be better. The second is that employees would be more satisfied, meaning that they would get a voice to represent them and their demands. And the third would be that...
Thank you, Hannah. Because we're running out of time, the question was pretty clear. Since both questions were from the proponents, so we can give them the closing statement to make.
Yes, I would say that unions, as we know and as we said before, seem to be unsustainable, and we know that the only unions that are sustainable are the ones in the sector of economy when there is no competition. And this can be seen and said for the government because they don't go out of the business. And when it comes to a company, I wouldn't unionize it because there are other departments, such as HR, for example, that will take into account the rights of other employees. So we don't need unions since we know
think that a department which considers humans, do you think that a department which considers humans resources takes care of their rights? How is that even, do you think that a department, do you think that a department which considers humans sources takes care of their rights?
Please don't interfere with each other. Thank you, Ms. Mr. Batzol. Okay, let them rest. Please don't interfere. Don't interfere, let them finish.
After I
Finish.
We know, as I said, that most of the unions seek for their self-interest, increasing their revenues rather than taking care of the employees.
Thank you.
Say something 10 seconds because
10 seconds. 9.
If I don't say it. You also mentioned the law, that if everything is fixed by law, then why do we need unions? Then why do we need attorneys and judges?
Yes.
Laws exist, they are the pillars of our society, but we can interpret the law differently. There will always be breaches of law, so there needs to be somebody who protects us. And those are the labor unions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. It was a wonderful debate. Thank you.
So I would like to thank the Battleground for proving us that they are the best debate in the UK. We have to proceed with the free trade and barriers. So free trade is one of the most debated topics in 19th, 20th and 21st century. Although there has always been opposition to free trade measures, recent years have seen political leadership in Kosovo trying to push agendas that lean towards trade barriers between Kosovo and other countries. Both sides of the issue argue that jobs and economy are at stake, but they disagree on the question of how domestic economic success is really defined. Through the show called the Econ Show with Vesa Z, we will get to know more about the pros and cons of promoting free trade or deciding to introduce barriers, potential implications of free trade for new domestic companies, jobs and potential retaliation measures, anti-dumping measures and other issues regarding CETA agreement and its implication for Kosovo. Now let's start.
Okay, so firstly, we want to prove the battleground wrong because this will be the best debate. So I want to welcome all of you for joining us, and our topic is about free debate, and it is a crucial it's a crucial topic. Once again, I want to welcome you for all being here, and I want to welcome, in my right, Ms. Argoan Ayseni, which is the General Director of the World Trade Organization, Mrs. Abresha Arife, Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Charole, which is the head of Kosovo Manufacturers Club, and Mr. Sopjane, which is the chairman of the Kosovo Chamber of Commerce. But firstly, I want you to introduce what free trade is and what free trade implies. So, please.
Which is the best course of action? Firstly, it is important to realize that the world economy is dependent on international trade. In practice, countries who produce more usually do better economically, and many countries enact trade barriers to favor their own production or free trade to promote competition and innovation. Some argue that due to free trade, trading countries will benefit from their comparative advantage and there will be more jobs and will help economic growth, while others argue that trade barriers will protect domestic industries and will ensure national security. For more on this topic, stay tuned.
So, for more on this topic, here are our guests. So, I want to address first Mrs. Ayseni about talking what is the perspective from the World Trade Organization. Can you firstly explain to us why should or should not a country have free trade? Who benefits and loses at this part?
Thank you. First, I would like to say that all states want to increase their economic growth and also want a state that is prospered, and free trade increases prosperity for the citizens by allowing consumers to buy more goods, better quality products, and also at lower cost. It drives economic growth, enhances efficiency, and also it increases innovation. These benefits increase as overall trade, exports and imports increases, so when free trade is allowed. I will start with a simple example, and which is related with the comparative advantage theory. And according to this theory, a country has a comparative advantage if that country can produce a good by sacrificing less from another good. In the real world, there are hundreds of nations producing thousands of products, most with different cost structures and also at different levels of efficiency. I'll take, for example, Kosovo and Albania by producing textiles and books. For Kosovo to produce 1 unit of textile, it has the opportunity cost of 4 bucks. So it has to sacrifice 4 bucks. For Albania to produce 1 unit of textile, it has the opportunity cost of 1.5 bucks, meaning it has to sacrifice 1.5 bucks. If this is the case, then Albania has a comparative advantage in producing textiles because it has to sacrifice lower books, so it has lower opportunity cost. If each country specializes in one product, so in one good, then assuming constant return to scale, output will double. So countries will be better off. We know that not all nations have the same resources. Not all nations are located at the same place.
To stop you here, I want to ask Mr. Charole, do you think that the consequences outweigh the benefits or not?
Thank you, Mr. Shirai. Yes, absolutely. I believe that the consequences are less than the benefits of the trade barriers. Now, I will talk about some reasons why trade barriers should be used in a country. First of all, I will begin with economic reasons. So when talking about economic objectives, trade barriers can be used mainly for two reasons. First of all, to protect domestic producers, and second, to provide revenue for the government. Now, as for protecting the producers, the government will use trade barriers in order to protect immature and newly created companies, industries, and such. By doing this, it will protect them from competing against foreign investors who are way more mature and way more specialized in that scenario. Using this strategy in the short term with a specified gradual time frame pressures domestic producers to improve the quality of their product and control the cost before reopening their market. Acting as such, these barriers would not only increase the GDP but also reduce unemployment rate. So it has two benefits, so you get two birds with one stone. Secondly, by using different type of trade barriers, such as tariffs, which are taxes on imports, the government will provide more revenue. As a matter of fact, tariffs represent an important percentage of some countries' revenue. So these countries cannot cut their tariffs and taxes because they cannot raise revenue for the government from other sources. And this revenue that the government will raise from these tariffs can be used on different places like education and specialization, which will make newly infant industries specialized, and it will make the country GDP grow faster.
Yes, but to stop you here, sorry. Mr. Sarifi, you're the Minister of Trade and Industry. Do you consider that free trade helps developing countries, or what about the cases of Kosovo?
Yes.
And what about local workers, to be more specific?
Yes, first of all, free trade increases access to higher quality and lower price goods. So it is the only type of truly fair trade because it offers consumers the most of choices and the best opportunities to improve their standard of living. So it fosters competition, spurring companies to innovate new products and better products. And to bring more of their goods and services to the market. So, so all of this by keeping the prices low and by making a higher quality of the products in order to retain and also increase the market share. Additionally, free trade means more growth. So according to economists from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, at least half of U.S. Imports are not consumer goods. So they are inputs for the U.S. Based producers. Thus, freeing trade reduces input costs, therefore reducing businesses' production costs and also promoting economic growth. Free trade, in addition, free trade also improves efficiency and innovation. So over time, free trade works with other market processes to shift workers and resources to more productive uses. So allowing more efficient industries to thrive. The results are higher wages, also investments such as infrastructure, and a more dynamic economy, which will lead to more improved workers and also production.
Moreover, for that, but you say that free trade has a positive effect. But does Mr. Sofiani think of the same?
Not exactly, because while it is true that free trade might have some benefits, but you are putting aside the negative externalities it has. So what negative externalities means that one group of people in a local community will benefit from free trade while the others will be hurt. So let's illustrate it by an example. Let's say that there are an African laborer, an African farmer, and an African doctor. So let's say that the African farmer is employed by the Western countries to export his or her own good. And the farmer is true that will benefit because he or she will get more money and will be able to buy the products with higher prices in the free market. However, the African doctor and the African laborer will be extremely hurt because they will not have the necessary cash or money to buy in the free open market, and unless
the African farmer is a really generous guy or girl, I don't see how they will get the money in another way. Plus, I'd like to relate back to the comparative advantages that Ms. Hisseni mentioned. It is true that when countries specialize in something, they can get a higher production, their production capability is increased. However, you're taking an example with two countries that are kind of in the same level, Kosovo and Albania, if I'm correct. However, let's take free trade doesn't always influence only countries with the same level of production and same level of people or economic status, but it does sometimes influence high powers or big developed countries with underdeveloped countries. So the underdeveloped countries will be hurt in the free trade because the developed countries will only buy the raw material.
That's not actually the case, because we have developed and undeveloped and also developed countries. I was mentioning the case with Brazil and US, for example. I was saying before that every country has different locations, and for example, you cannot make coffee in US or make wheat in Brazil. However, if free trade is allowed, then Brazil and US can share their or can specialize in products that they are better off. And another thing, if what are you trying to say is to protect or protectionism or trade barriers, then if protection were expected to be long-lasting, then protected domestic firms would have less incentive to improve their productive efficiency. Also, if you do not have competition in your country, how do you believe that those companies would increase their quality of products or will reduce their prices? Do you, Mr. Sopiani, think that companies would lower their prices if they do not have competition? And another thing, do you think that they are incentivized if they do not have competition to increase their quality of their goods? They do not have competition if there are no other products.
However, you cannot damage your own corporations.
It's not damaging.
It
is not damaging. It is actually increasing your economic growth. We are about increasing our economic growth. And you cannot say that protectionism actually reduces economic growth, because with more productivity, there is economic growth. You cannot say that. You cannot say that, because it is a fact that
I just wanted to say that you said that without competition, domestic producer would not have an incentive to improve and reduce prices. Well, that is not true. If you give competition, already established very well competition in industries, just let me finish. If you give infant industry competition from industries that are already well established and already very professional, it would be ensured death for those infant industries. As a government, I need to finish. As a government, you need to protect your newly created industries because they are one of the most important parts of our economy, especially in developing countries such as ours.
Plus, okay, continue.
I just want to reply to both of the comments they made, since one of the main arguments of the opponents of them is against free trade is that when trade introduces lower costs to international competitors, it puts domestic producers out of business. While this argument isn't technically incorrect, it is slightly short-sighted. When looking at the free trade issue more broadly, on the other hand, it becomes clear that there are actually two other important considerations. First, the loss of domestic jobs is coupled with reductions in prices of goods that consumers buy, and these benefits
just what you're arguing, that free trade lowers the prices.
Not only reduces jobs in the industry, but it also creates jobs in other industries.
Okay, I would like to relate back to, first of all, I would like to explain our position here, because I believe that we're being misunderstood. We're not saying that we're against free trade at all. of course, approach free trade, but free trade should have restrictions, should have barriers. Trade barriers doesn't mean against free trade. It just means that you give an advantage to your own domestic producers, and you don't give advantage to the foreign. So in the example that you gave is Brazil and the U.S. We're not saying that if the countries are not capable of producing something, they should not trade. Of course, if they're not capable of producing coffee in the U.S., they should get the coffee from Brazil. That's
okay,
completely fine.
Mr. Sopiani, can you explain to me, it is good free trade, but what about the local workers? You mentioned the domestic companies, but what about the local
I mentioned that free trade will only benefit those workers that are being recruited or employed by the foreign companies. As I said, negative externalities. Yeah, all of them are in the domestic. However, the people, let's say the farmers, as I said, the African farmers are being recruited, they have the benefit. However, the other part of the society, which is the majority, will be highly hurt. So, in a way, this free trade will hurt the majority of the population in the underdeveloped countries.
I also wanted to say that free trade will give incentives to all the companies to go abroad and take cheap labor. So they will hire labor from basically China or African and very developing countries rather than hiring.
Okay, I would like to elaborate more on what Mr. Sopiani said.
Just short, because I have a...
Yes. I would say that free trade lower costs. Why is that so? It's because free trade allows companies to lower their business costs by using the cheapest economic resource available. So, if a company, for example in Kosovo, is not able to buy, it doesn't have the resources in Kosovo, then it can buy from abroad. How a company in Kosovo start working if it doesn't have the resources to work?
As I said, if the state does not have the resources, they can use free trade.
Okay, just a minute to prove your opinion. Just 1 second.
Okay, just to finish this.
Okay.
This would help companies to start their business and not harm them.
Okay, so you mentioned all the local workers and how Kosovo. So in this perspective, we will see how citizens view free trade, and we will comment on it.
I believe that the free trade is better because I, as a consumer, will want to avoid the extra cost of tax imposed on the goods that are exported. So the free trade will make the goods more cheaper and easier available around the world.
I believe that free trade can have a positive side, but when companies consider to use the low-wage workforce countries around the world, such as China and Indonesia, to produce product, I think that it will impact many job losses in the country and also factories. However, for countries that are not as developed, such as Kosovo, it can be very helpful in these sectors.
So citizens think that trade barriers will hurt the consumer because they will pay more for the products that they buy. However, what about the wages, low wages? For example, take a country like America. If it goes to help workers in China, what about the local workers there in America?
I heard the citizen that said that trade barriers will increase the prices, and I cannot say that that is not true. However, what I can say is that we as people, if we want to develop our country, because country above everything, we should be able to sacrifice in the short run. Let's say we should be able to suffer from higher prices in the following 2 years if we want to improve the trade deficit of our states, because as we know, Kosovo has a monthly trade deficit of 150 million, which accounts to more than 1 billion yearly. And we can also, as I said, protect our domestic producers and make them, give them the advantage to produce better in the long run.
I just want to add a point.
Free trade does not create more jobs, but protectionism or trade barriers neither does protectionism create jobs. Free trade may reduce jobs in inefficient industries, but it frees up resources to create jobs in efficient industries. And this will boost overall wages and also improve living standards of the citizens. And this is what we are aiming for. Protectionism, in contrast, attempts to protect jobs that otherwise maybe sometimes will disappear, and at the expense of more innovative industries. So protectionism protects industries that actually will disappear.
Yes. And also, just in addition to this, much of the change in the labor force is not a result of the free trade, but as of innovation. Much of the technology, such as apps and mobile devices, or that have changed, such as they have substituted like calendars, even calculators, and similar products. And therefore, using protectionist policies to save a job comes at an enormous cost. And as opportunities shrink and input costs swell for industries downstream. So we are not saying that like free trade does create new jobs, but mostly innovations.
Yeah, you talked about innovation and you mentioned Apple, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Apps and technology.
Yes, Apple is one of the companies that has the least hired workers within its country. It hires low labor costs, and it hires, mostly we have seen videos of Apple hiring people in, I think, Somalia, if I'm not wrong, that have like these tents, anti-suicide.
Apple as a company. We're talking about
I know, you're talking about innovation, and I'm talking about all your companies that innovate due to free trade. Now, free trade, yes, it gives incentives to companies to innovate, but it also gives incentives for them to hire cheap labor from developing countries, and also probably hire infants and immature people to work for them, and under very harsh and very devastating conditions.
I would just please take an example as Kosovo. Kosovo is under agreement with the Central European Free Trade Agreement, otherwise called CETA. Is this a positive effect or rather a negative effect for Kosovo?
Yes, well, considering that the future economic development of Kosovo is based on trade, production, and export, CEFTA was seen as a very important mechanism to achieve these objectives. So, as a member of CEFTA, Kosovo is exposed to a market of 20 million consumers and to a GDP of 120 million euros. Moreover, Kosovo is also open to transfer know-how and trade, also on technology, and also to export and import with other members of CEFTA. And at the same time, this agreement also helps Kosovo to integrate in EU and also be a member of World Trade Organization. For instance, in 2012, the total export with CEFTA was.
What about domestic companies?
CEFTA, as we all know, is a free trade agreement, and CEFTA, just like any other free trade agreement, hurts our infant industries. So maybe some of you are not familiar with infant industries. We are talking about startups that are just starting to operate in a country, and as we all know, when a firm starts to operate, they are really weak. So if we introduce competition through free trade, so competition, multinational corporations that have huge capital and enormous power, we are not letting our own startups develop.
That is not necessarily the case. That is not necessarily the case.
If you bring corporation for certainly you will kill the startup countries here.
There can be competition within the state without foreign
competition throughout our own domestic
competition. Okay, so but when you take dumping measures, how will that
Can I just add something shortly? Can I just add something shortly? Of course, CETA has its pros and cons, but you are making it sound much more worse than it is.
Well, it is worse.
How can you make sure that there's variability of goods if you cannot produce everything?
And I'm not relating to just CETA, I'm relating to free trade agreements in general.
But how? I would like to ask some questions to Mr. Chalwe and Sofiane. If you're trying to protect your state or your citizens by protectionism or by trade barriers, how will you protect your state actually by putting higher prices if you do not have competition? And how can you decrease the price if there is no competition between companies? It is one point. Another point is, how can you make sure that there are variability of goods if you cannot produce everything because you do not have the location or other things? Also, if you do put trade barriers to a country, do you think that that country will not put trade barriers to you?
Yeah, but we should not really care about what the other country does, because
you would care because you're better at something that we are better at something else.
Producers, so we do not care what the other country does.
However,
as I said, if we lack the resources, and if our country lacks the resources, of course, free trade is the best
option. But how can trade barriers stop dumping?
Yeah, I want to talk about dumping because they're constantly talking about lowering prices and lowering prices. And dumping, now dumping is this process where a company exports a product at a price lower than the price that it normally charges on its own hometown. So it's a price below the fair market value. Now this is what usually foreign companies do. They dump, basically that's what dumping means. They dump their products into another country without protection, and they price those products below fair market value. Now, tariffs will, now there is a tariff that will protect a country from dumping, and that is an anti-dumping duty. So it is a protectionist tariff that a domestic government imposes on foreign imports that it believes are priced below the fair market value. It needs to do this because dumping is catastrophic for domestic producers, because if you have a product that costs about $1 in the US,
you said that protectionism is bad for developing countries, but actually now you're saying the opposite, because developing countries, for example, developing countries also usually produce crops, for example, and if you put anti-dumping and you put higher prices for that, then you are harming actual developing countries. How they are going to be developed?
Please finalize your points because we're at the end of the show.
Okay, you said you're saying that we can let companies sell their prices at a very low price.
I'm saying that there are organizations who control that. And you cannot just as a state go and sell to another state.
The organizations, as we saw in the case of Kosovo, are not being really efficient, because as we saw the cheese case in Kosovo, the price was highly under the production cost.
Also, there is a case with Kosovo and Albania with potatoes. What do you think about that? Putting trade barriers?
What case? I'm not familiar with the potato case.
You're not?
No.
The case when Albania put trade barriers to Kosovo and they could not sell their potatoes in Albania. What do you think? Why do you think that they?
We have constantly stated that.
Do you think that it's good for Albania and also for Kosovo?
We have constantly stated that we're not completely against free trade. If a country cannot produce a specific, I just think
I would like also finalize my statements by giving another reason why.
If a country cannot produce a specific product, yes, it can import that. But if it is perfectly capable, you mentioned the example with textile and books. I think Kosovars are perfectly capable of producing.
I would like to finalize my statement by also explaining the dependency theory, which is highly.
Keep it short, please.
Yes, very short. 1 minute. So what the dependency theory says, that the big powerful corporation will come into our state, they will buy our own raw materials, which is currently happening. They will export them to their state, develop them into highly priced and expensive machines, come back in Kosovo, sell the machines, drain Kosovo out of money, and then we will be forced our government will be forced to go and take loans from IMF or different banks outside Kosovo, so the money leaves Kosovo, and this will increase our own taxes. The consumers will have the double burden in this thing.
Yes, but international trade is economically enriching, like in general. Imposing barriers to such exchanges will prevent the nation from fully realizing the economic gains from trade and must reduce welfare. So imposing barriers only it doesn't benefit the country.
Okay, so that is. So you have seen the advantages and disadvantages of free trade, and I hope you really like it. And this was the end of our debate. If you have any question from the public, feel free to ask. Okay, Janita?
I have a question for Mr. Sofiane.
Just if you wait the microphone. Okay, got it. It's not a problem.
Okay. When you put high trade barriers, foreign investors will hesitate to invest in Kosovo. Thus, we are deprived of the jobs such investment could have created, which will hurt our economy. How do you compensate the loss of such opportunity to the people who have been desperately looking for a job for a long time?
As I previously mentioned for a couple of times, it's true that free trade will hurt the trade barriers will hurt the consumers in the short run. However, we should have a long-sighted vision, which will say that if we don't kill our own domestic industries, they will get the comparative advantage that they need to lower the prices. So basically, in the long run, everybody wins, even the consumers, even our own industries.
Okay, so another question I saw. Yes, please.
Okay, so I have a question for Ms. Zeni or Ms. Aife. I would appreciate it if either of you would answer my question. So you were against trade barriers, if I'm not mistaken. So if you don't put such trade barriers, how will domestic firms survive? For example, the Slovenian milk company Alpsko has entered our market with prices that can take out domestic companies out of business. So what's the strategy here?
Yes, thank you for the question. We actually elaborated on this point. First, we should concentrate also on the positive arguments about the free trade. When trade introduces lower cost international competitors, it is actually the case that it may sometimes reduce the production of domestic companies. However, the loss of domestic jobs or the production is coupled with the reduction in prices, and this is an advantage of free trade. Also, these benefits shouldn't be ignored, and these benefits also outweigh the protectionism. Second, free trade not only reduces jobs in some industries, but it is able to create more jobs in other industries. And this is because there are usually industries usually industries where the domestic producers end up being exporters. So they have more possibility to have more materials and more possibility to develop their companies. So it is not just that they will reduce the productivity of domestic companies, but also they would raise the productivity of the domestic
thank you,
companies.
Mr. Isini. This is our debate for this time. Thank you very much for coming.
Now we'll have a 20 minutes break, and please don't bring drinks 20 minutes break, and don't bring drinks into auditorium.
Don't drink.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a great break. Now, 3 debates until now have been finished, and we have 3 more. Before introducing you to the next debate, I would like to thank the Econ Show with Vesa for introducing the debate on whether it is good to promote free trade or introduce the barriers. The next debate will be a Zona Debate team, where it will be debated about the pros and cons of social protection programs, the advantages and disadvantages of cash benefits and in-kind benefits, the misuses of cash transfers and the efficiency implications that in-kind benefits have. And last but not least, the Kosovo scheme will be presented with the social protection program. Now I would like Martina moderate this debate. Thank you, and Karen.
Welcome to this special edition of Zona Debated with 4 powerful ladies. Today we'll be holding the debate in English because 3 of our guests are foreigners who've joined from the US and Bulgaria for this particular debate. To my left, I have Diora Peia, Director at the Monetary and Economic Research Center and Department of Finance at UNWE. Next to her is our special guest from the US, Senior Vice President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in the Department of Labor, Immigration and Employee Benefits, Rina Svishta. To my right, I have Marigona Krasnici, economist, psychologist, and a Jensen Prize winner on behavioral science.
And next to her is Yuza Hoti, chairwoman at the Union of Independent Trade Unions of Kosovo. We'd like to begin the debate by introducing the topic.
Governments around the world transfer benefits to their citizens, sometimes as cash and sometimes in the form of in-kind transfers of goods and services. Some economists feel that cash benefits give the biggest boost to the happiness of the recipients. Yet, more governments choose in-kind transfers as the preferred way to control how aid dollars are used. Essentially, a cash transfer is simply a payment from the government to help improve the life of its citizens. Examples of cash transfer programs include Social Security and unemployment benefits. Cash transfer payments can be made in a lump sum or in many smaller installments. Frequently, these are termed unconditional cash transfers because the government imposes no restrictions on how to aid money may be spent, and the recipients have the greatest freedom over what goods and services they buy. On the other hand, an in-kind transfer is a type of public spending used to help specific populations, but in the form of goods and services, for free or at a reduced rate rather than in cash. Examples of in-kind benefits may be health programs, student loans, or veteran benefits. By giving in-kind transfers, governments specify how individuals must use public assistance dollars. As such, students' loans can only be used to finance college education, and health programs covers only the medical costs of those who are taking care of their health. Governments around the world transfer benefits.
I hope you like the video prepared by Rita Ayupe, and I hope that gave you a better insight on the topic, which I guess you assumed is cash benefits versus in-kind benefits. I'd like to start with Marigona and ask her what's her opinion on social protection.
As mentioned in the video, social protection can be two main different kinds, in-kind benefits and as well as social cash transfers. I mainly support and I will focus on the cash transfers. Cash transfers are benefits paid by government to the individuals in form of cash. For example, if you are injured on the job, you may be eligible for workers' compensation benefits. These benefits These benefits are paid in cash, not in form of a product or a service. So they are classified as cash. Cash transfers have many advantages, and I will elaborate on some of them. The benefit of cash transfer is that you can use them in a way that you choose. For example, unemployment benefits are intended to help you cover living expenses if you lose your job, but you are not forced to spend them in a specific way. So this gives you greater freedom to use the benefits in a way that suits your specific situation. So this is the freedom of choice. According to the Princeton University, economists have consistently found that cash transfer make the recipient happier than in-kind transfers. An individual who receives unemployment benefits, for instance, is free to spend the money in any way. So it is more efficient to give cash directly to families and let them choose precisely which goods and which services they need the most. So clearly to state, cash is better for the welfare. Just think about how cash raises the budget constraints and how it leads to higher indifference curves. So cash transfers allows for greater beneficiary choices, and as well as they can stimulate local markets. Speed is another advantage of cash benefits. Perhaps the main benefit of cash over in-kind is the fact that delivering cash is much quicker than delivering in-kind benefits.
So I'd like to relate to that and also direct the question to Ms. Fishta. If I understood correctly, giving cash transfer to people is better because you give them the freedom to purchase the goods and services that they want. Do you think that this freedom is beneficial to those receiving this assistance?
Well, giving direct cash gives people more freedom indeed, and it is also argued that direct cash or direct transfers make people happier, because if alcohol makes them happier, they will use cash transfer to buy alcohol. But from the perspective of the government and also the taxpayers, happiness and freedom among the poor is not the main goal. Instead, the main goal is to see the poor have access to necessities, have access to certain goods and services that are mandatory for their well-being. Therefore, in-kind benefits are better in comparison to cash benefits. In-kind benefits allow the government to have some kind of control over the patterns of the recipients. This program also ensures that the recipients will use the grants to maybe buy necessities other than luxuries. So while the biggest problem of the cash transfer is that people don't purchase what the transfer is intended for. This also prevents the government to control how the money is spent. Therefore, I believe that cash transfer failed to smoothen poverty. On the other hand, poor access to healthcare, education, and housing will benefit them in the long run, because this access to basic services such as education and health will first make them healthier, and second, make them more educated. So an overall educated population can also increase the probability of having the poor maybe lifted out from the poverty. Therefore, also better educated population means that this will positively impact the economic growth. So while cash gives freedom and happiness to the poor, in-kind benefits improve their well-being. That's why I think in-cash benefits are way better than cash.
I will have to disagree with Ms. Fishta. First of all, you mentioned how with in-kind benefits, the government has better control over where its money is spent. If this is the only issue that you find with cash transfers, I would like to let you know about electronic benefit transfer cards, which are something that have been first introduced in the US, which even though it's just a cash transfer payment in the form of a card, it limits how those recipients can use these funds. So it doesn't allow for them to use these money for alcohol, gambling, bingo cards, lottery, and such other expenses.
I will also
finish my question. Thank you. And also, you mentioned how they don't use them for luxuries. I don't know if you know, but most of these funds that they receive, especially in cash transfers, are really small amounts, and they couldn't even use them for luxuries even if they wanted to, because they have to survive.
So alcohol is not a luxury, you said?
I don't think alcohol is considered as a luxury.
It also harms your health.
Also about electronic credit cards you mentioned, even though they have cash inside, it's more an in-kind benefit idea because they restrict people from using money freely. So you are actually saying and you are believing that money can be misused since you restrict them.
I saw that coming actually, and I researched about it. So according to the World Food Program website, let me just quote that. Cash-based transfers is a catch-all expression. It covers a variety of ways in which funds are given out to individuals and families, and may take the form of physical money, bank transfers, vouchers, whether paper or other electronic platforms. So,
yeah, which means the idea of in-kind benefits.
Yes.
I just said finish about.
Thank you, Iza. Thank you. I'd like to address one question to Diora. One of you mentioned that government prefers in-kind benefits. Could you please tell me the rationale behind this decision?
Yes, based on our researches in our research centers, we have concluded that in-kind benefits are the most significant form of redistribution in developing and also developed countries. The fraction of GDP spent on in-kind benefits is remarkably similar across OECD countries, which is OECD is an organization for economic cooperation and development. And usually in-kind benefits consist of spending on healthcare and education, but it also is about childcare, housing, and active labor market programs that also matter. To answer your question, yes, there is a rationale behind this popularity. The main reason why in-kind benefits are so famous and
gain so much attention is because in-kind benefits are more politically feasible rather than cash benefits. Following the perception that poor cannot be trusted, giving the money will not lead to poverty reduction or improvement of their well-being, because you cannot control them how they are going to actually use this money. Another reason why in-kind benefits are so popular is because they also care about other societies, not only about poor people. So their aim is to help all the societies in their country. They can be used to bolster parts of the economy. For instance, food stamps are a classic example for this. The government helps farmers by disposing of surplus commodities and thereby supporting farm prices, meaning that the government buys food from the farms and distributes it as in-kind benefit for the poor.
Are you actually suggesting that the government uses in-kind benefits to have more control over people?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's a good thing? That's a good thing?
Yes,
yes, it is.
Okay, just one quick remark for your part of your speech. So you said not only does it benefit, in-kind benefits don't only benefit the poor people, but the other part of the society. I would have to disagree with this, because having in-kind benefits actually it's a burden for taxpayers, because in-kind benefits have this habit of overconsumption, because since you have free, let's say, healthcare, you might even use it more than you really need it. So the marginal costs exceed the marginal benefits. So how does that?
In this case, also cash transfers exceed the burden for the taxpayers, because a larger demand will mean that the price of goods will increase. So, except that they have to pay for the transfers for the poor, taxpayers should also pay higher prices for the goods that they use.
I will also disagree with some of the points that Ms. Payam mentioned. For example, the thing with an in-kind transfer, you potentially impose a constraint on the basket of the goods and thus reduce utility compared to the cash case. Relating it to the cash case, firstly we have to say that in-kind benefits hurt the dignity of the poor people, while cash transfers are the ones that are not required to cash recipients are not required to queue the visible to receive assistance, the content of which is determined by external actors as in the best interest of the beneficiaries. Empowerment is the other advantage of cash case in this case. In an any conflict or displacement context, families have to prioritize certain needs over other needs, regardless of the level of the assistance they receive. With cash, families can choose directly which needs they should prioritize, even with conditional cash, as Ilza mentioned earlier. Recipients can select what is important to them, and so cash improves the inclusion of certain household members in decision making.
Well, just I maybe mention a disadvantage about the cash transfers. As we know, the aim of the government to make the expenditures of the government to aid the poor is not to fall in the welfare trap, so to decrease the incentives of the poor to work, but it's totally the opposite. So I believe that cash transfers are not suitable for increasing the poor incentive to work. So the reason just giving, let me finish. The reason just giving cash to the poor maybe is not typically a very good plan, because very frequently giving cash to someone makes them worse than good, because people usually use the money for other things than to improve their well-being. So they also participate in different activities that are bad for themselves and also for the society, which are gambling or drinking.
Ms. Beya, you wanted to add something?
I wanted to add to what Ms. Holte said about tax distortion on labor supply. There is also the provision of in-kind benefit goods that are complementary to labor that might mitigate this distortion.
For example, is the child care that increases the labor supply of young mothers.
So Ms. Peya mentioned that in-kind benefits are used in both developing and developed countries. Do you think that this reflects how inefficient cash benefits are?
Okay, from an economic perspective, actually it's quite the contrary. The in-kind benefits are considered as inefficient because cash-based transfers
How come that income benefits are so widely used then?
That's another topic of discussion, which I'm sure we have mentioned partially so far, and we will in the continuing minutes. But I would like to focus on how, in fact, it's quite the contrary, because in-kind benefits are more inefficient. With an in-kind transfer program, the recipients have, as I mentioned before, have more incentive to use all of the aid that they get instead of just how much they need, which, as you can see in this graph, which I wanted to share with you, it adds to the taxpayers' money, so you are paying for something that is really not needed. The B part would not have been spent if we had used cash transfers instead of if we had used in-kind benefits. Additionally, I would like to just mention a quick example which proves my point, which is the study which was done in the Michigan Retirement Research Center about Medicaid and how it has been quite inefficient because it has caused, because of the consumption distortion, which as I mentioned before, it has caused losses of 1.5 to 7.1 billion per year of dollars. So do you think is it worth it?
But I don't know how cash transfers are effective since they are
Okay,
easily manipulated. They also leave a place for corruption.
We were talking about economic efficiency.
I'm also talking from cash transfers because you are just cash transfers, right?
Sure.
So I'm talking about the manipulation that people make with cash transfers because we know that cash is easily misused, right? So it is also creates security risk.
Excuse me, I've been notified that my colleague Vita Yupi is just outside making a live interview. Vita, can you hear me? Yes, Vita, I can hear you. Can you tell us what
Sorry for interrupting the flow of the debate, but I'm here with our IT campus with some students around, and we thought that we could ask some questions to the guests that you have in the studio. We thought that this special edition of Zona Adibati could be a very helpful show to address some of the questions that students may have. So let's go and ask them.
Do you know the difference between cash benefits and in-kind benefits? I think the difference between in-kind benefits and cash benefits is that cash benefits are cash equivalents given to people for social assistance, while in-kind benefits are certain goods that are chosen by the government to give to people who need social assistance. Based on what you just said, from which one do you think that poor people would benefit the most? I think poor people would benefit more if they get in-kind benefits because the government would determine which are the best goods and that poor people would benefit more. And also cash equivalents or cash benefits may be misused by people who receive them. Do you think that the current social assistance scheme is effective in terms of easing the life of the poor?
No, it's not, because it doesn't target them very effectively, and even those who are targeted, the social assistance is providing some assistance for them, but they are still living under the threshold levels, which is not enough, and it actually is incentive for them to actually keep growing in families, because since the kids become 4 years old, they are not eligible for more social assistance, so they have to basically make more kids, and that just worsens the situation within the family.
Thank you a lot. Do you think that the current social assistance scheme is effective in terms of easing the life of the poor?
I do not think that the scheme is effective enough because the money given is not enough to cover the expenses and the basic needs of them who are in need, let alone their families. So I think that another solution has to be proposed.
Thank you. Do you know someone who has been in need of the social assistance in the past?
Yes, I do know somebody pretty close to me, my first-hand neighbor. He's been in the social assistance program here in Kosovo for the last 4 years, and since I see that the program is not being helpful to his situation, I try to help him by my own self by providing some food once in a month and maybe some cash when he needs it.
What do you think would be a potential solution to this problem?
A potential solution to this sort of inefficiency of the schemes would be to maybe a combination of both programs, maybe give people in-kind benefits and also cash, because through in-kind benefits they can get the necessities, they need food and drinks, but with cash they can enjoy the money in the way that they want.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rita. These were really interesting responses, I think, and especially the last one. So I'd like to take your opinion on that. Do you think that the combination of both schemes would be effective in determining the social assistance programs? Yes, Diora?
Yes, I think as many as government can provide for the poor people, it is better for them, so it's not a problem.
I believe a combination of both would be a great idea, but it should again be concentrated on in-kind benefits, because as I said, they are easier to control and they are more efficient.
Actually, I don't think they are easier to control, because just think about
They are easier to control because you can manage to know what goods and services the recipients
and that
are
one,
consuming.
yes, sure, I totally agree. But what if inflation happens and prices of goods change, and then the same voucher or the same food stamp that you were using until now will not buy the same amount of goods? It will take a long time, but it has a huge time lag until these processes are fixed. It has
That will happen in the same way with cash
That won't
transfer,
happen
because you will not change the cash
You
transfer,
can't
right?
just
Every
buy
month
money
the prices change.
If I may add, I also agree with Ms. Houti that cash has to be the main component of the social protection. As I mentioned, there are lots of advantages that I mentioned earlier, but also there is also the advantage of the multiplier effect on the cash transfers. Cash transfers program can directly benefit local markets more than providing in-kind assistance, and can strengthen local economies as well as benefit host communities. So it is so the increase in demand attracts the food sellers and links the food deficit areas with food surplus ones. Since traders tend to ship the food from low to high price areas, so cash disbursement can activate or regenerate local markets and encourage trading to more remote locations. So the cash transfers can help to reduce price disparities and as well as encourage the restoration of market equilibrium.
Yes, but as we know, Kosovo has a cash transfer scheme, right? So do you think we are being efficient in scheme of poverty? Because we know that poverty is around 30%.
It doesn't.
So is that a good and normal
in this
level
case,
of
it doesn't
poverty?
mean that the cash in this is particularly bad.
Yeah, because
they
it's probably
have different problems with the design of the program.
I have to make I'd like to make one more question. I'd like to make one more question for Diora. Social assistance scheme were mentioned in the interviews, and that really caught my eye and maybe the audience eye. In Kosovo, social assistance scheme is the only cash transfer program intended to reduce poverty. Do you think that this program should also be transformed into in-kind benefits, or should remain the same?
Yes, I firmly believe that the social assistance scheme should be converted into in-kind benefit rather than cash benefit, for the reason that government cannot accurately identify the poor from the other people, even though the main purpose is to target transfers to the needy for efficiency reasons. Therefore, we always tend to overlook the self-targeting mechanisms. Hence, the government must rely on individuals to self-identify
Just a second, just holding.
that are needed. And even though there are some tests that people should pass in order to get cash assistance, they are easily manipulated. If cash is offered, all individuals that have incentive to claim, all individuals have incentive to claim that they are poor. But if, on the other hand, if in-kind benefits are provided to the people, then those who do not really need them are less willing to try to obtain them, and as these transfers are of low value rather than cash.
And
Thank you, Ms. Thea.
Can we have a quick question? In-kind benefits also is seen as a separation device.
We will have a final statement from Ms. Hote, and then we can conclude. Yes, Ms. Hote.
Actually, it will be continued by my colleague Marigona. I just have a quick question for Ms. Thea. So, do you think that
We don't have much time, so
if
just
we introduce the food stamps in Kosovo, considering our culture, do you think people would be more willing or less willing to actually be part of the social assistance? Do you think people would want to be stigmatized as really needing the social assistance?
Yes, why not?
They want to be stigmatized.
To conclude, I would say that for the best social protection program in Kosovo would be if cash is the main component, and as to counter-argument about what Ms. Fischstadt said, that cash benefits in this case would be efficient and well prepared. If it was well prepared in Kosovo, then it would be a better situation in Kosovo. So if we improve the program and improve the laws, and so it would be effective in this case.
Thank you, Ms. Krasnici. We have to conclude now. The final statement.
Yes, so I think that cash transfer are still not good at all because they are usually received by men in our country since they are maybe considered as the head of our families, and this automatically gives less opportunities to women to maybe have equal use of the money. So in this case, cash transfer disadvantages women, while on the other case, in-kind benefits give equal opportunities to everyone despite any differences. So I think
the final statement goes to Lina Fischstadt.
Yes.
Thank you. To conclude this debate, my colleague Rita has created a poll to show the people's opinion and real thoughts about this debate. And you can watch in the video now.
Cash. Cash.
In-kind benefit.
Cash. Cash. Income. Both.
Thank you for being part of our debate. Does anyone of you have any question? Yes, Anissa?
If I were to qualify for these programs, me as a student, I believe I would benefit more from cash benefits. Yes, since it gives me more freedom to choose what I want to invest on. Do you think that certain instances like for students, the programs for cash benefits are way better than in-kind ones?
The programs for cash benefits or cash transfers are given to the poor who don't have the necessities, the food, the water, the shelter. So how can they choose to invest when they don't have what to eat? So I think this argument is nonsense. I'm sorry.
Yes, another question, Rita?
I have a question for Lisa. The social protection will have to lead toward permanent benefits instead of temporary ones, thus discouraging employment.
Thank you for your question. And this is the usual argument which is used by in-kind benefit advocates, that people will get used with having the money. Actually, social protection in general, people say that people will get used to having the money and will not have any incentives to work. However, even with studies, it has been shown that people live in such poor conditions that even if they get a job, they will still want to keep the social assistance because their conditions are so poor. It's not that they do not want to work. Their job conditions, the minimum wage, are so low that they have no other choice. So as the chairwoman of the Union of Independent Trade Union of Kosovo, I believe that better wages, better working hours, and better, if any, social security benefits will act as an incentive for these groups of people to start working. Thank you.
Any other questions? So we'll end our debate here. Thank you for your attention.
I would like to thank Zona and the audit team for debating on social protection programs. Now I would like to give the floor to the Mad Money team. with Besar Gergi and Agnes Auka as the moderators, where the debate will be about the unemployment rate in Kosovo, quality of statistics that have produced the official unemployment rate, issues like success or failure of the government to create environment for job creation, political promises on the number of jobs to be created from the current government, artificial reduction of the unemployment rates in the migration rate of 2015, the presence of discouraged workers in Kosovo, quality of education in Kosovo, and many other issues will be discussed. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Osman, for the presentation. Hello, everybody. This is our debate for unemployment in Kosovo. And please continue with the introduction. So tonight we are going to debate about unemployment, as mentioned earlier. In my left, I have the representatives of majority and the government. Mr. Muharrem Temay, the Minister of Social Welfare and Labor from LDK. Ms. Alisa Yashari, the Minister of Economic Development from PDK. And to my right, I have opposition members. Mr. Florian Goshi, the Vice President of AAK, and Ms. Drenusha Berisha, the Vice President of Vetvendosia. But before we start debating, let us first understand better what unemployment is and the statistics about Kosovo.
The unemployment rate in Kosovo measures the number of people actively looking for a job as a percentage of labor force. 2/3 of Kosovo's population are part of the labor force, in which individuals from 15 to 64 years old are considered as the working population. Unemployment is more evident in females, with 34.3%, in comparison to men, which is 26.9%. The success or failure of the government to create jobs, political promises on the number of jobs to be created, and many more issues relating to unemployment will be discussed. So stay tuned for more information.
So now that we know what unemployment is, let us start with the debate. The first question goes to the government representatives. And it is, has the unemployment rate in Kosovo decreased during your rule or not?
First of all, thank you for inviting me in your debate. I would like to start off by emphasizing that ever since we came into power in 2008, we have decreased unemployment rates for 14.6%. In 2008...
So you do take pride on decreasing the unemployment rate?
Of course, yes, we do. That is...
But still, our unemployment rate remains with 28.7%, the highest in Europe. Now, we all know that both PDK and LDK have been in government after war for long periods of time. And how do you justify this high number of unemployed people?
Okay. First of all, I wanted to say that in 2008, the unemployment rate was 47.5%, while the latest updates in 2017 say that unemployment is 32.9. So that's a 14.6 decrease, and of course we take pride in it. Although we do acknowledge that the unemployment rate is still high, 32.9, but our investments and our plans are long-term. We cannot reduce unemployment completely. However, we have multiple projects that we will elaborate on further on that will show specifically how many people we have employed and in what sectors. Also, regarding the unemployment rate being the highest in Europe, actually I took the time to compare it to some countries in the region. In Croatia, in 2008, the unemployment rate was 12.20, while in 2017 it's 14.4, so they had an increase by 2%, while in Serbia, from 2008 to 2017, they've only been able to decrease it by 5%, so I think our rates are pretty good.
Croatia is a member of the European Union, and Serbia is multiple times richer than Kosovo is. And Kosovo still remains one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and foreign investments have constantly decreased ever since the Declaration of Independence.
Thank you for having me, first of all. Yes, corruption is one of the causes of
the unattraction of foreign direct investments. As my colleague previously mentioned, that within 2 years we managed to decrease unemployment from 35.9 to 26.2, which is a 9% decrease. We should also mention and note that this cannot be done within the night. We did this for 2 years and we take pride for that. Apart from that, it's not that we haven't done anything in order to attract foreign direct investment. Since 2007, there have been a lot of policies implemented in order to direct foreign direct investment, because we know the significance and importance of foreign direct investment. Let me start with profit tax rate of 10%, which we have is lowest in the region, apart from Macedonia, who has a 9%. Apart from that, we have also established 2 agencies, IPAK and KIASA, which is Kosovo's Investment Enterprise Support Agency. The aim of these 2 agencies is to analyze investment decisions, establish businesses, obtain necessary approvals from authorities, and also find local partners in Kosovo. Apart from that, we have also, in 2007, the free trade regime with CEFTA members. And there are also some reforms to remove regulatory obstacles in order to improve business environment conditions and shorten the time to open the business.
If I may add, it is not fair that you attribute the decrease in the foreign direct investments in Kosovo to our governing only, because as we know, after the declaration of independence in 2008, there was a global financial crisis, while also in 2009 there was a eurozone crisis. So it's very natural to see that countries choose to divert from investments in times of crisis.
Yes, but that was in 2008 and now we are in 2017. But either way, the minister is saying that they have decreased the unemployment rate for 9% in just 2 years. Now, if we do a simple calculation, 2/3 of Kosovo population are eligible for a job. This means that we have 1,200,000 people who are eligible for a job. To decrease unemployment rate for 9%, which is unprecedented in our history, in just 2 years, we need to employ 108,000 people. So with this plan, we would, in 4 years of governance of PDK and LDK, we would employ 216,000 people. The highest promise in this election was of PDK, employing 200,000 people. Now with these statistics, it means that you would employ 16,000 more people.
First of all, there were no deadlines for the 200,000 jobs we were going to make. No matter how insignificant they were mentioned.
Let us introduce the opposition.
Yes, we would like to hear from them.
How do you think these statistics, are they realistic or not? Or are they affected by the migration wave of 2015, where according to some reports, 50,000 people emigrated to European countries?
Yes, thank you, Basat. But before I answer your question, I feel obligated to thank the lady and the gentleman in front of us, because for a moment you made me believe that I've been living in heaven all these years. But actually, okay. And you made me believe that I've been governed by such a wonderful government, and actually this is not the case. But we as Bentosia are highly confident that people of Kosovo are not blind, and they live in this reality. They live in this reality for 17 years after war now. We live in a country where even 17 years after war, there is an unemployment rate of 32%. There is a youth unemployment which is enormous, of 57%. And even 17 years after the war, the poverty rate in our country is around 30%. And 12% of your citizens live with less than €1 a day, meaning that extreme poverty in our country is 12%. And now you come here in this debate and you keep talking how you've done this and that, and how you've improved the life of our citizens. And actually I have to admit, I'm not surprised that you're saying that you have increased employment, because you have employed all your family members and all your cousins, and actually you failed to see beyond that. You failed to see that actually there are families in our country that live with less than €1 a day.
Ms. Berisha, please, let's stick to the facts.
Okay. So, regarding the statistics, you said that unemployment rate has decreased. So currently there are 1.2 million
people that are part of the labor force in our country. And we have to emphasize that the inactivity rate in our country is 62%, meaning that there are 62% of people that are not currently looking for jobs. If we compare the results that were provided by labor force, we can see that unemployment rate has decreased from 35 to 33%, and inactivity rate has increased from 59 to 62%. And this is only logical. The official statistics that are provided only underestimate the real unemployment rate in our country, because as we can see, the inactivity rate has increased. Discouraged workers and migration has caused for this to happen. So I think that you should not be proud for lowering unemployment. Actually, you should be ashamed for all the things that you've done during these years. And I don't think that you should remember that there are currently 750,000 people that are not looking for jobs. These people are not, they are still unemployed. And you cannot solve economic and social problems in our country by simple calculations or by simply trying to manipulate with numbers.
So, to cut it short, you don't trust the statistics provided by the government?
No, because they do not represent the real unemployment rate in our country.
You mentioned discouraged workers, sorry.
Now, I have to interrupt you. Sorry, we have simply too much what our politicians think about the unemployment, but let's see what the citizens think about it.
The unemployment in Kosovo is increasing, especially the last few years. And we can analyze it in the youth. So the youth employment is especially increasing. They're doing their college, their degree, but they're ended up as taxi drivers or supermarket workers. And I think that the politics are the biggest problem because they are not thinking about the solutions. They just pursue their own interests. Yeah, that's it.
Now we have one more interview.
I think that the rate of unemployment in Kosovo is very high. This is because the lack of investment from foreign countries as well as from Kosovo itself. Another problem are the high requirement that employers seek from their employees.
So as you can see, citizens complain about the high rate of unemployment and blame the politics for it. Now, since we are talking about politics, let's see the political promises of our parties. Before the last elections, PDK promised 200,000 new jobs, whereas LDK promised 150,000 new jobs. Now, first, I don't understand how you regulated this. Did you decide that together you would create 350,000 jobs or find a median among them? But what have you done to achieve your goals? Because obviously you could not achieve that, these numbers.
Because there was no deadline, I'm mentioning again. No matter how insignificant the aforementioned arguments and achievements are for the opposition, we managed to achieve yet another goal for 2016 by decreasing the unemployment rate by 9%. By creating 27,000 jobs, whereas from which 7,000 jobs are working visas in Germany after our deal with the government of Germany. Apart from that, we have also created an equal opportunity in the labor market. Let me mention that we also take pride in...
So, Mr. Tema, you created 27,000 out of 200,000 promised.
It's work in progress, Mr. Gurgin.
Yes. Let me continue, please. We also take pride on the agreement reached with the International Society for Cooperation with the National Behindertenhilfe and Down Syndrome Kosovo to fully integrate handicapped individuals in the labor market, eliminating any source of discrimination, thus working towards our long-term goal of creating a labor market with equal opportunities to everyone. This project will be implemented by the domestic organizations and also international organizations that are focused on training these handicapped individuals. Apart from that, we have also had an official meeting with the members of parliament that were elected from the minority communities. With Tanosha Demi, Kuitim Pachau, and Etema Lifi, we reached an agreement to employ 90 individuals from these minorities for the training. The money that they will be paid is 150, including here the cost of transportation and food. And however, to apply for this position, the candidates should be registered in employment offices.
I would like to add on to what Mr. Mohareme had to say. It is true that my political party has promised 200,000 jobs, and we have achieved 27,000 jobs so far, although we must remind our opposition that this is work in progress and they may not know the reality of politics since they haven't been in power, but projects take long to implement, and 200,000 jobs is not a small number, and we're working very, very committed towards it. I would like to mention some projects that we have done.
Let's hope that we will see 200,000 newly employed people during our lifetime. But I see that opposition numbers are really happy with the critiques for the government. But we have some problems with your platforms too. Because AAK promised that the median wage in Kosovo would be 1,000 euros. And the highest median wage in our region belongs to Slovenia, which has 990 euros. So even Slovenia, 2 decades member of European Union, could not achieve a median wage of 1,000 euros. How are you going to achieve that? And for Gadvendosia, I have a question, because they want to implement a broader social program, and to do this, they promise to increase taxes. But as we all know, increased taxes and development do not go hand in hand. So how do you plan to have increased taxes and economic development?
Okay, so thank you very much, Tesab. Our party's goal is to make average wages 1,000, and this is not impossible. And I will mention some facts. The first one is that Kosovo has metals and minerals, so natural resources, that are worth 1,000 billion. Just coal we have 500 billion. It is calculated that we have oil 6 times more than Albanian, and the highway that we did with Albanian is done in order to connect with Trans-Adriatic pipeline and sell gas to Western Europe. Also, there are plans, there are all other plans. There is one plan worth investing 1 billion euro that will create an oil refinery, and well, when this oil will start working, it will double the budget of Kosovo. All these are done based on natural resources. But also, before doing this, we have to be sure that the rule of law exists in Kosovo, and also the legal infrastructure, and create positive environment for foreign investors. These are some facts that we can present to you, but other facts we have also, and other plans for Kosovo, but you know what, because we cannot tell them, because other parties may misuse them.
So you base economic development on Kosovo and its natural resources.
Yes, totally.
And do you have any plan for industrialization or agriculture?
First, as I mentioned, the plan that I told you, 1 billion investment, is to create the oil refinery. This is the industrialization. We have other plans too.
Let's see what Gadvendos has to say.
Can I first of all say something to the...
A reply,
yeah.
but please make it short.
Just 200,000 jobs are not only too big, but are also unrealistic. And regarding your, you said that you made this agreement to include people with disabilities in the labor market, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you failed to mention, or maybe you forgot, that according to this agreement, for every 50th person, there has to be one person with disabilities, and if the company fails to do this, then it will have to pay a penalty. But the penalty is so small, it's just 1% of the minimum wage in our country. And as a result of this, many companies are failing, they are willing to pay this penalty rather than hire people with disabilities. So from this, we can conclude that also this strategy of yours failed. Regarding your question now.
Can I add something? Okay.
Okay. So your question was regarding taxes. So yes, we as Gadvendosia have established or are based on fiscal policies that rely on equality and justice, as we believe that this is the only way through which investments and production and job creation can be fostered. So in order to create this balance and to weaken the burden that is placed on low-income families in our country, we support the progressive tax system, starting by 0% for minimum wage earners, up to 30% to people who have an income that is 10 times higher than the minimum wage in Kosovo. And this seems to be quite logical, considering that high-income earners are the ones that use or employ the benefits in terms of public goods. So we consider that by employing such fiscal policy, we will be capable of creating jobs. Because through this tax scale, we can offer also tax holidays to companies if they show capacity to generate jobs for people in our country. In addition to that, progressive tax system is considered to lower the incentive to increase wages, and this indirectly will also affect unemployment. So our policies are based mainly on equality, as we believe that equality among society is what accelerates economic growth and brings the desired economic development that we see.
If I may add something, please. You said that your policies are based on equality, but I think we all know that progressive tax system does not always mean equality. By overtaxing the richer subset of the population, you're disincentivizing them from working more, which will have an impact on investments, savings, and also consumption. We do not think that that is the right path by following strict fiscal policy. However, more concrete investments such as ours would actually help reduce the unemployment. Just like Mr. Gashi mentioned that Kosovo is abundant in natural resources, actually I was able to reach an agreement with the company Esan, Serpil Demirel, who they are willing to invest over 100 million euros in Kosovo in the industries of zinc and lead. And they are also committed, we have a recent agreement that they are committed to employing only local workers. So not only will Kosovo's industry of zinc and lead benefit from this, this will automatically reduce unemployment. And furthermore, you mentioned...
Please, let's cut it short because we are running out of time.
Okay, should I cut it completely? Okay, very quickly. You mentioned that you mentioned earlier that people who have migrated have kind of distorted the unemployment rates. However, out of 50,000 people who have migrated, the Ministry of Interior has been able to return 30,000 of them. So we do not think that it has a large impact or it does distort any of the unemployment.
It does of Interior Affairs or Germany who returned them?
I believe that is not relevant.
It's a cooperation to return the unemployed in their state and the remaining unemployed.
Now let's move on to a new topic. Thank you for your comments about the general unemployment. But we have another topic that we have to discuss today, and it is youth unemployment. Because it is more worrying for us since youth unemployment in Kosovo is 57.7%. Again, the highest in the region. Now, the Kosovo universities absorb every second student out of 3 seniors that finish high school. And even most developed nations like Germany send only half of its kids to college. Now, my question goes again to majority. How sustainable do you think this education system is?
We are taking further implementation for improving the education system and the quality of education. First of all, I would like to say that we have a project achieved with the agreement of Ministry of Labour and Social Welfare, GIZ, and with the German organization Diakoni. Support for the youth is always going to be our priority. The project consists of 59 students, recruiting them and sending them to Germany for practice and studies. And this is going to be also, those who have an academic degree will have the opportunity to go and work there with a minimum wage of 40,000 euros. This is also called Blaue Karte EU, which is offering this opportunity.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this affects only 59 students, and Kosovo has hundreds of...
Let me continue with the other projects, please. 5 days ago, we signed the agreement with the Director of Switzerland office, Mr. Patrick Atteny in Pristina, with a project called Ritiat Consimit Rinive, which is a long term that will last till December 2020. It is signed for professional training in order to encourage youth, and open the doors to better opportunities. This is going to be funded by the government of Switzerland with a fund of 7,570,000 Swiss francs. And apart from that, in this context, the agreement between the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare and GIZ and LBB, which is a construction company in Germany.
Don't try to come around my question. Answer it directly and honestly. Are you going to limit the number of students entering universities or not? Because we know that it is way too high.
We cannot do that. We cannot.
Let's see what opposition has to say.
I don't know why we should cooperate with Switzerland or Germany in order to decrease the number of students going to universities.
In order to bring,
we can do it ourselves. We can create professional schools. As we know, not all of us can go to universities. We don't have the capacity, but others have a tendency to be mechanics, to be carpenters, to deal with technology and other things. Kosovo youth can benefit from this professional school. So we should the only idea that can decrease the students from going into university and give them certain trainings and skills is the professional school.
The main objective was to actually get these new ideas from the developed countries, these new trainings, in order to bring them to Kosovo.
17 years have passed and you didn't do anything for this.
Actually, Mr. Goshek,
about that.
Professional schools are underrated in Kosovo.
Mr. Goshek, that brings me to my next point actually. We have actually done something in this sector besides sitting and criticizing. We have launched a new pilot project in one of the cities.
How can I criticize myself if I'm not government? If I have not done anything?
We have launched.
Because you were in charge. That's why I'm criticizing you.
And still are.
We have launched a pilot project in Gilan, which we hope to replicate everywhere else in each municipality of Kosovo. The pilot project is mainly directed at women, youth, but women, since they are not as represented in the labor force. We have actually managed to launch a project that is online-based, freelancing, so they get jobs abroad, so money flows in from abroad to Kosovo without actually stealing jobs away from anyone. Out of 100...
What does this have to do with education?
If you want to talk about education, actually, we have reached an agreement in 2004 that it obligates the authorities of Kosovo to standardize the education system to the Bologna system. So yes, we are undertaking reforms in the education system, but we are also trying to come up with innovative ideas of employing our youth, such as the pilot project that I just talked about.
That's it in 2004, right?
Yes.
So 13 years have passed. We have seen that this system isn't quite working well for Kosovo. Now, what are the promises of PDK and LDK to improve the education in Kosovo to have more youth employment?
Yes.
Do you have any direct answer to this or not?
Yes, we have.
Schools, of course.
The idea was to send.
Okay. Now, what is your idea?
The idea was to send youth abroad in order to gain the accurate skills that they need in order to bring them in Kosovo. By bringing them in Kosovo, they will innovate.
How many?
I just mentioned the program that was done with the GIZ and with the German organization Diakoni of 59 youngsters from Kosovo, and also 5 days ago the project with the director of Switzerland with Mr. Patrick Attany, which is still in process. And also in this context, I would like to also make the point with the LBB, which is German construction company, that we have sent almost 20 students for professional studying in Germany for the construction sector. This way, they will bring new innovation ideas in our country in order to increase employment.
Right, now, let's have the opinion of Bedvendosia about the education system in Kosovo, and we will continue with the questions from audience.
We as Bedvendosia consider that the failure to improve employability of youth in our country is the main problem, as it is considered that 40,000 up to 50,000 people enter the market every year, and the government fails to provide the conditions that would enable them to
Ms.
enter the
Berisha, I'm
market.
asking what you are going
Yes.
to do, not what the government is doing.
Okay. We are not on the government, but elections are just around the corner, and we believe that we will be the party that will govern the state. Vedvedosya believes that the government expenditures, as Florian mentioned, should be directed towards vocational education, training, and internship opportunities. We consider that, for example, the co-op instrument that RIT Kosovo and business community has, it would be a good model that should be followed. In addition to that, in order to increase employability, we will direct our investments toward enhancing the career, just one moment. The Career Center Counseling, which operates at UP University. As we consider that 900 students counsel per year out of 50,000 is just such a small number, and this cannot increase the employability of our young individuals in Kosovo.
So do you promise to extend this number?
Of course.
Mr. Gordy, can I have a last comment, please?
With a short.
Yes. As you mentioned, elections are just around the corner. I wish you all the luck in the world. And I also wanted to remind our audience that our government is actually, this year and next year, we will be committed to fully functionalizing the new power plant, Kosovo, as we have already started doing so. This will include $1 billion of investments and thousands of jobs in building it and then functionalizing it. So it is a solution for decades to come.
Yes, we know that our government.
I just wonder if we should continue with the questions from audience.
Okay, just one.
2 sentences.
We know that our government has utilized or has employed these infrastructure investments in order to increase employment, but I think it should be emphasized that these are just short-term employments. And just in the case of highway building, $1 billion were invested and only less than 2,000 people, around 2,000 people were employed.
So you do promise to create more long-term jobs?
We do not make as much promises as they do, but when we will come to power, you'll see the action.
Thank you for your comments.
How is the power plant a short-term project?
I think they have something to take pride in, but they're complaining and their cliche speeches they have.
It's over. You have a lot of things to say, both parties have, but let's listen to the citizens. Please, Leah.
I have a question for Ms. Yashwade. What effect will later retirement have on the labor force and will it cost the state more money?
Can you say it again, please?
What effect will later retirement have on the labor force and will it cost the state more money? Okay.
Yeah. Later retirement certainly would have an effect on the labor force, since it would postpone the age where people retire and they would be kind of forced to stay in the labor force for a longer amount of time. However, I do not think that this applies to Kosovo, because our problem is not having people stay in the labor force for a short amount of time. We actually have a lot of people who want to be in the labor force but cannot find jobs, so I don't think that that's the right policy in approaching unemployment. A better policy would be long-term investments. Thank you for your question.
My question goes to Mr. Timai. What should be the main focus of the government in order to reduce unemployment?
The main priority is youth unemployment, and with this we need to enforce the...
Priority is youth unemployment. Employment or unemployment?
To decrease youth unemployment. Thank you. The quality of labor force, first of all. But in the interview, the representative of private business said that two-thirds of the managers actually complained about or are being dissatisfied or partially satisfied with the applicants that have been applying for those jobs due to the theoretical parts they learn in their universities and miss in the practical part. This is why we're trying to engage in co-ops.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but who is responsible for this education system?
We're trying to improve it. This is why I'm making this project.
17 years have passed and we are still trying. You
know.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Mad Money team for debating on the unemployment rate in Kosovo. Now I will introduce the next and last debate for today's event, which is the Yetana Kosovo team, which will be moderated by Yeta Jora, and on the role of women in Kosovo politics. Also, issues like the role of the parliament to control the government, and also whether elections should be held early this summer. And last but not least, the most highly debated issues such as visa liberalization and demarcation will be addressed. Without further ado, I would like to let Yeta Jora proceed with her exhibition.
Dear citizens, stay tuned for our special edition of the Yetana Kosovo program on the debate on political development with our 4 special women in politics.
So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us in our special edition of Yetana Kosovo, held for the first time here at the UK. So we have seen the turmoil created in our political environment through various issues, some of which we will discuss here today. So ladies and gentlemen, here I have 4 influential women who play a crucial role in our political environment and current situation. So I have Vjora Citaku, Ambassador of Republic of Kosovo to the United States from PPK. I have Vjosa Osmani, Member of Parliament from LDK. And on my other hand, I have Albulina Hagiu, Member of Parliament from Bedbendusje, and Teuta Hagiu, Member of Parliament from AAK. So to begin with, we will discuss about the quota system and how it's imposed in the national parliament. So Ms. Citaku, how does the quota instrument system affect the political environment? Is the quota system imposed here in our national parliament as a good thing or a bad thing?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. I strongly believe that the gender quota system that we have in place right now does positively influence the political environment in Kosovo, because it enables women to be part of important political policy-making decisions, as well as decision-making processes in Kosovo. Just to remind the audience, out of 120 members of the parliament, 30% of those members have to be women, and this is determined by law, so it's part of our constitution. And I think that generally this is very important because Kosovo has traditionally been a very patriarchal society. Women have not had the same opportunities as men to especially pursue political careers. And however, during the recent years, we have seen that women have become more emancipated. And this process is being further fostered by the quota system. Just to mention it briefly, what our government has done, some of our milestones that we have done in this regard. Starting from myself, I am the Kosovar ambassador to our strongest and most important ally that we have in the world, the US. The Ministry of Justice is also led by a woman, who is Dorota Sadipovoja. We have the Ministry of European Integration, which is led by Mimoza Ahmeta. And lastly, we have the Minister of Dialogue, Edita Tahiri, who is guiding one of the most important processes that Kosovo has, which is the dialogue to normalize relations between Kosovo and Serbia. However, as always, I believe that there's much improvement that has to be done. But our government will continue to lobby to have a more comprehensive and inclusive representation of women in politics.
Thank you, Ms. Citaku. Now I would like to hear Ms. Hagiu from AAK. Since Ms. Citaku mentioned, explained what the quota system works in our national parliament, what were the results of the quota system in the political environment of Kosovo?
Firstly, thank you, Yeta, for inviting us in such debate where all of us are women, regardless of our individual opinions. Today we will show a full representation of our community, which has for years struggled from underrepresentation in political decision-making processes.
Kosovo has indeed made some important steps in regards to improving women's representation in political area. And that is more than evident with the implementation of electoral gender quota, where it requires 30% of women, as Mrs. Ms. Chitoko mentioned. So we can see that just the mere implementation of this gender quota has created space for women in being active in politics. Therefore, there are a number of examples where influential women have had the chance now to promote the possibility of representation in politics. Thus, electoral gender quotas provide the legal possibility of women participating in politics, which is essential. However, there are some implications regarding to this gender quota. A colleague of mine did a research study where on this topic, and it resulted that 79.3% of the people who were interviewed and surveyed agreed that there should be more women in parliament, indicating that the current number of women in parliament is insufficient. Therefore, I am adding more to that point, that the electoral gender quota itself will not necessarily bring meaningful changes in the politics for women. And when I'm saying changes, I refer to the political outcomes in terms of policies. Changing cultural attitudes and of people and politicians is a very long process. Thus, while taking into account the positive effects of this gender quota, we should also recognize their limited potential, especially to bring about social change. Therefore, it's vital to distinguish between the practical and also the symbolic representation of women. Once in parliament, women should not only use their position formally, but they should induce the political influence, diversity, and sustainability of women in politics. As to conclude, the implementation of electoral gender quotas, at least in the short term, will affect or will contribute only to the formal representation of women in politics, while neglecting the importance of practical representation. But we look forward to future improvements. Thank you. I would also like to ask Ms. Osmani, you as a woman, in your perspective, how do you feel about the quota instrument for the composition and the national parliament?
Okay, thank you, Janeta. I agree with my fellow colleagues, Ms. Chitoko and Ms. Hajiu. There has been a lot of progress in for women to participate in politics and especially in leadership roles. However, there is still room left to improve this system. I want to mention three main problems that are still remaining in Kosovo for the participation of women in politics. Some of them are parties are unable to attract women as party members. The second one is that leadership positions are inaccessible to most women. And the third one is that parties recruit women simply to fulfill the minimum legal quota requirement. So, as I mentioned earlier, until now there was a lot of progress. However, we need to implement these laws at a stronger level, because by increasing the number of women serving as public role models also helps change public opinion about women's ability to participate in politics. However, this is my opinion as a deputy in the parliament, whereas our party, Lidaka, is more focused on forming a platform which is suitable and which will help the development of Kosovo, regardless of people who will be in leadership roles. So we are not concentrated in selecting those people based on gender.
Okay, thank you. So I would also like to hear from Ms. Hajiu from West Mendoza regarding another issue. So we talked about the quota instrument in the national parliament. However, we will cover in the issue of how the government influences the parliament. So Ms. Hajiu, what do you think about the role of parliament in controlling the government? Since you stand in the opposition, how do you see this from the opposition perspective?
Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me, first of all.
I just want to establish first that, as we all know, the government is really the influencing factor in controlling the parliament, whether it should be, instead it should be the other way around, meaning that the parliament should be passing the appropriate bills that will be sent to the government. Instead, it's the government pushing the agenda of the party members to the parliament, even though they do not represent the needs and interests of the citizens. We are all well aware that there are many cases of censoring the members of parliament and subduing the dissent in terms of some bills, as we'll elaborate later when it comes to the demarcation and other such bills. As we can see, the government is interfering with the work of parliament, and it is not letting it do its job, and it is forcing us to fulfill the interests of the ruling class in PDK and LDK, instead of establishing bills that prosper the citizens of Kosovo.
Thank you. So now my colleague will play a video which is from citizens regarding their opinions about the quota instrument.
This is how the young generation feels about the 33% quota in the parliament and the participation of women in the political sphere.
I don't agree with the fact of discrimination done towards women with the quota, that they should have less votes to enter the parliament, because it's discrimination nonetheless, and obviously there are men who would be discriminated negatively for this. And also, I don't think there will be votes anytime soon.
So our government is in a way helping women to get more into institutions by setting different quotas, as far as I know, at least. And in a way, people differ in their opinions about the quotas, because some people think that this is humiliating to women and it is helping them to get positions without being able to be competent professionally. But however, I stand on the other side. I think that it should be enforced, because if we leave that to the fate, I would say, it will be problematic due to the completeness of people to get different positions. So I think that Kosovo stands in a good position, because I know that an African place is the one who has most women as members of parliament, but I think also Kosovo is not standing bad, because we have some of the politicians who are in our parliament who are female, and they contribute a lot to our society.
After the declarance of independence of Kosovo, we have established a law which keeps 33% of the seats of the parliament reserved for women. This is a quota which is obligatory, so the parliament has to fill that number. I think this helps women engage in politics, and especially in the parliament. And this includes decision making, and including more women which are not part of politics into social life.
Talking about 33% that women have in the quota in parliament, I don't think that is a huge help, because even though the women are present there, actually they don't have a say. So which means that they don't have active voice there. So for this reason, I think that there should be other ways in order to engage women, and not only the quota.
So, Ms. Asmani, to get back to what Leah said about her opinion of the role of Parliament in controlling the government, what's your LDK's influence in the Parliament, and how does that influence Parliament influence the government?
Okay, so
Make it brief, please.
So we always have, I have to always say that there is a main distinction between my opinion and my party's opinion. However, I want to state that during the last few months we have been working on a lot of things, and especially the demarcation, which would lead to devaluation. So I want to mention some things that have some things that have been going on in the parliament. There has been lack of cooperation between the political parties as to achieve political unity, and the main problem here is that there is no communication between the parties. So because Kosovo is a small country, and in order for us to grow and reach a higher stage of development, people and deputies in the parliament need to cooperate more. specifically, as I mentioned earlier, cooperation between the opposition, meaning that there should be a better form of communication between all parties, and we should work together when working on the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, since all political parties have to be informed for this process. Also,
so what you're saying here is you're mentioning some negative aspects of what actually LDK and your contradict your views. What about some of the positive aspects, since it is your party, and how do you support your party in that aspect?
Yes, we should also take into consideration that LDK has a lot of economists, and the governance should be better. There are some positive developments. There are a number of policies that have been implemented during the past few years. And this is also a type of development which brings Kosovo a step closer to the EU integration. However, there is still work left to be done. And I will mention again that this will only be achieved with the cooperation between political parties. To reach economic decisions and agreements with other countries, especially for the demarcation.
May I respond to that?
Yeah.
You mentioned that there's no cooperation, no co-work between the opposition and the government. How do you expect us to cooperate with you when your policies are inherently divisive? How do you expect us to work with you on policies that only advance the interests of a few and do not do anything to help the poor, the people who cannot have access to good healthcare, to good education? How do you expect us to work with you on policies that do not deal with what actually matters to the people of our country?
That is what I'm trying to actually say. Also, LDK as a party should have their ideas open to the other parties, so that there will be cooperation between the both parties to reach an agreement. So I'm not saying that only one party should decide on everything that is being developed in Kosovo.
Can I reply to that?
Yeah, I would also like to hear your views, since PDK plays a crucial role in the parliament, and if the how the opposition has been able to influence your policies regarding this matter.
Since the elections that we had in 2014, PDK came out as the largest party, and we currently hold 36 seats. Together with our ruling coalition, we have 69 seats. And of course, if you look at the numbers, we have more influence because we have more seats. However, Kosovo is a democratic country. We truly appreciate the role that the opposition is playing. I tend to disagree when you say that we are just pushing our agendas and that...
Yes, sorry for interrupting.
Okay.
So many meetings have been pushed because of the parliament. The main head of the parliament has been missing because of his electoral campaigns in different cities. What's the explanation?
The role of the opposition is still not undermined, because as we are working towards beneficial processes for Kosovo, you are interrupting those meetings in the parliament by resorting to tear gas, by simply ignoring the meetings.
That's the only way.
Is that your responsibility? Were you elected to get out of the meetings and just disregard anything that this government is trying to do?
It's better to be there. It's better to be there than not be at all.
Yeah, but you're not being there, or even when you are, you're throwing tear gas. You're not bringing so much to the table, but you're resorting to
there again.
But you're not even there.
Well,
and just one last comment, you have a very crucial role, and you can see that in the case of demarcation with Serbia has not been ratified, is not going to be ratified as I can see it anytime soon, because you are resisting it. Okay, we are open.
You are resisting
criticism. We are open. That's why we have a democracy.
You are not open.
That's why we have a strong opposition in our parliament. Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned both teams of the demarcation process, so I would like to talk about just yesterday the Prime Minister, Isa Mustafa, met with Dimitro Avramopoulos, the European Commissioner for Migration, Home Affairs and Citizenship, where he actually encouraged Isa Mustafa to speed up the process of voting for demarcation, meaning that he actually may have rejected the proposal that he made in Brussels. So what do you have, Ms. Osmani, what do you have to say about the Isa Mustafa's proposal, and what do you think, since he will be there until Thursday, what will be the outcomes of his visit there?
As I also mentioned in other debates, if you may have seen, Isa Mustafa should slow down the process of the demarcation, because we have to sit down and talk about it, and also there are other things that are left to be done. We have proposed an investigative commission to be implemented inside the Kosovo's parliament, which would last for 30 days, and this would help demarcation. So,
by helping demarcation, do you mean that putting it into vote and proceeding with it?
I think that we should stop and investigate the process before reaching an agreement.
So your opinion is contradictory to your party's opinion?
Yes.
How come then?
As you may have seen, I've had this problem with Isa Mustafa before as well. I have told him to, as I mentioned earlier, that we need to cooperate with you as well to reach before reaching an agreement for this, so that we will speed up the process of visa liberalization.
But isn't the issue within your own party that you don't have enough votes to make the demarcation pass in parliament? Isn't it true that if you had the votes, demarcation would have passed already? So is there an internal issue within the party that you're trying to cover up, or what is it?
No, I just told you that we actually have an issue. I have an issue with Isa Mustafa that we actually need to, as I mentioned, and this is the third time that I mentioned it, we need to analyze this process and investigate it.
Well, if you have an issue, I'm sure that the PPK representative doesn't have an issue. So, what's your opinion on the visa liberalization, since the opposition is connecting these, making that these two do not have a connection between, and the process of demarcation may not pass whether we can get the visa liberalization. And also, is demarcation really the crucial component of getting the visa liberalization?
The process of visa liberalization is closely linked to the demarcation. Before I start talking about the demarcation, I want to just briefly mention the process of visa liberalization and what has been done so far. The process remains one of our main priorities that we have right now. The European Parliament, together with the European Commission, have set forth a set of recommendations that we have to fulfill. The two most important ones are the fight against corruption and organized crime, and the second one is the border demarcation with Montenegro. In regards to the first recommendation, we have done an amazing job. We have filed 21 charges against 150 defendants. 33 cases of corruption and organized crime have been tackled respectively, and what is most important is that we have received the green light in this regard from the EU. However, the problem relies specifically on the issue of demarcation. I can see that there are so many disagreements flaring around, but I have to say that while it has not been ratified, I would like to ask for your vote in favor of the demarcation whenever we hold the meeting.
How do you expect the vote of demarcation when actually, as the opposition states, that there will be lost 8,000 of the Kosovo's territory?
I want to say that we will not lose any territory. We promise that not a meter of Kosovo's territory will be negotiated.
We want evidences on that.
Please?
We want evidences on that. We want investigation on that, because we believe that there is a mistake done there.
Okay, what we are just doing is that we are marking a currently existing border that has been established since 1974. This matter has been politicized to a level that it should not have. We have proceeded with the demarcation with Albania, we've done it with Montenegro, we will also do it in the future with Serbia, and this is a crucial regard that we have to go through because we need to determine once and for all the borders and the Balkans. I am aware that people are becoming engaged in this topic with emotions. worldwide, whenever we talk about borders, people get so, this sparks emotions in them because they think that we are redefining them, but we are not. We are not writing history, we are just marking a current border. And you said that you want investigations. I have to say that the Republic of Kosovo, specifically the government of Kosovo, has set up a state commission which is headed by Murat Meha, and this commission has...
We know about the commission.
Okay, I have to...
Don't continue because we know about that.
Okay, but do you know that the commission went to the municipalities that lie across the region, and the municipalities were completely okay with proceeding with the ratification?
No.
Okay, then you know now.
So I would also like to, because we don't have much time, does the opposition joined with NISMA and AAK? What are your differences? Sorry. Why did you join, and why is your stand toward demarcation and early elections?
What united us as opposition subjects, so with Vendose, NISMA and AAK together, was our will to not let in any way demarcation and association agreements which substantially threaten our function of our state to pass on. In this part, we do not have differences since we have the same purpose, the same cause, and we want, as a joint force, to fight against these two agreements. To be honest, I did not check the detailed plan program of the Vedendosya or of the NISMA. However, I know, and I cannot make clear differences between us, but it is logical that three different political subjects cannot have the same plan program. What is important to mention, and that it connects with our request to overthrow the current government, is that from the moment we started our resistance in Parliament against these agreements, position subjects all the time have blamed us and have criticized us for by saying that what we are doing is totally nonsense, and that they will not even we will not even pass the threshold of the elections. Following this logic,
we don't have just much time. Make it short.
Following this logic, to who would be more beneficial the early elections? Of course, to the current.
You.
Of course, to the
no. To you.
Did you hear my argument?
Neglecting the demarcation in order to send the country to early elections.
If you are not afraid that we will win, then why are you not accepting the early?
Be the largest party, and we will come first.
You have by yourself issued a decision on the constitution that the first party that gains the majority of votes will be the only one that will have the right for a coalition.
But that
that's enough. That's enough.
You have also PDK.
Please. I would also like to tackle the issue of association. How do you relate the issue of association with the issue of demarcation, since these are the main topics that are being discussed right now? So, Ms. Chitaku, does your party support the formation of an association of Serbian municipalities? And can you briefly explain the role that such association will have in Kosovo?
Our party,
very short.
Yeah, our party strongly supports the formation of the Association of the Serbian Municipalities. I would like to remind to my colleagues as well as the audience that the association is not being established for the first time in history. Belgium also has it. It has the municipalities of Brussels, Flemish region, as well as Walloon, and it has not in any way undermined the political independence and territorial integrity of Belgium. What we want as a PDK and the ruling one of the ruling parties, is that we want to see that the association is established within Kosovo's constitutional framework. We have sent the matter to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court has given its verdict. They have said that
so thank you.
That is one line, and we wanted to
and I also would like for Ms. Hadziu to explain this in the opposition perspective.
I'm really glad you mentioned the Constitutional Court and the Constitution in itself, because the Association for Serbian Municipalities in itself is against two amendments in the Constitution and against many other laws, because it is not acting as an NGO, it is in fact a body which has executive competences within Kosovo. So how can you say that it is acting within the Kosovo's constitution and within our framework when instead it is not doing so, and this is a parallel
We oppose that as well. What we want to establish is to have the association that fits within the constitutional framework. It will not be a parallel structure to govern to our institutions. It will not be the second Republika Srpska. It will function as an NGO. But they
what
have
about
to
the extent of power that this association will actually have or impose on the government of Kosovo? I mean, you have read, I'm sure, so the accession or the limits of the power that this association will exercise in Kosovo government is not clearly stated.
Yeah, I want to clarify it to our opposition. It will be like an NGO because the main purposes that it will have are to the certain municipalities will function as a group, so they will have the opportunity to express their concerns in matters specifically related to local democracy, local economy, health and social care, urban and
okay, Ms. Haji, do you have anything
so no executive power
to close it since we're already done?
At this moment, at the moment the bill stands as it is now, it is not an NGO because it has all the characteristics associated with an independent body, with a municipality.
That's why we're not proceeding with it
Please
yet.
let Ms. Haji finish.
As it is now, you have left it in limbo, similar as it's going to be left with the demarcation, because these are both arbitrarily decided conditions and coercions by the EU in hindering our accession to the EU and stopping the process of visa liberalization. So I'm saying to you that you can describe it as an NGO, but it is not that in any way, shape, or form, because it has many competences related to education, to healthcare, to urban and rural development, which are exclusively related to municipalities and other parallel structures.
Okay, so thank you.
I
This
just
was
have a very last
we don't have time. I'm sorry. So if we have any questions from the audience regarding the topics that we discussed, please feel free. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Do you have the microphone?
I have a question regarding capital investments. I have a question regarding the capital investments in Kosovo. To anybody who is interested in answering, does the integration of Kosovo in the EU affect the capital investments that are made in Kosovo, and if yes, how?
I'd like to answer. So, Teledos's main goal has always been state building and socioeconomic development. So, in the case of joining the EU, we obviously expect there to be an increase in foreign investment, which will strengthen Kosovo's position in the world and in the world market. However, we expect that the choices that will be made for capital investment will be not just solely for roads. There will be other capital structures which will help, and infrastructure which will help our economic development. We also want to say that before joining the EU and before even getting to the matter of capital investment, we have to root out the issues of corruption, because corruption is the main factor which is hindering foreign investment in our country.
Okay, so if you want to.
Yeah, I think that European integration would increase the number of investments that will happen in Kosovo. It will increase the opportunities. Local producers will also, from a local perspective, local producers will also have reduced barriers to enter European markets, which they face currently many problems. Moreover, it's important to note that before we join the EU, we have to improve our economy, because otherwise it will be very difficult to compete with the already existing European Union.
Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this was a special edition of Jetana Kosovo.
Just stay for a moment. So, thank you, Jetana Kosovo team. I would also like to thank all the people who made this event possible. I would like to thank AUK staff who arranged these tables. I would like to thank the debaters and moderators. I would also like to thank Professor Besnik Beslimi for this event. And I would like to thank my colleague Elsa for helping me host the event. So I invite everybody who is present here to come forward and take the picture together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck in
Acciacciaio?
Great debate.